Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Innovators Livecast series. My name is Selvi Sekar, and I'm the Content and Community Lead here at Brand Innovators. I'm thrilled to kick off the C-Suite and Marketing Leadership Livecast. We've got a phenomenal event in store with a great lineup of marketers. Before we get started, we'd like to thank all of the marketers, sponsors, and especially you, the audience, for helping make this event possible. Throughout the event, you will be able to use the Q&A widget and the chat widget at the bottom of your screen. We encourage you to engage with our speakers and other attendees using these tools throughout the program. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Taryn Raymond, Chief Marketing Officer at FTD and ProFlowers, and their moderator, Michael Dobson, Senior Vice President of Digital Media at Involved Media. Hi, I'll let you take it from here.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Taryn. Nice to see you.
How are you doing? Good to see you.
Good. Happy November. It's crazy. This year is flying by, and we have quite a bit of it behind us. So I'm Michael Dobson. I am the SVP of Involved Media, which we are a digital agency who specializes specifically in search, social, programmatic, and influencer marketing. Everything from planning, optimization, reporting, analytics, all of the good stuff that we love in the space. So Taryn and I are going to talk a little bit about that today, but I want to kick it off with introducing Taryn as it relates to your role and digging into kind of all the changes you went through. So tell us a little bit, though, to start, just about your background and kind of how you've ended up where you are today, and some of your previous roles that are relevant.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Taryn Raymond, Chief Marketing Officer at FTD and ProFlowers. So I started my marketing career actually on the B2B side. So doing everything from performance marketing to trade shows, all of the type of B2B marketing related things. And I really wanted to be on the retail side. So I shifted over to the agency world and managed a few different clients, actually launched their original websites, as well as all of their original digital marketing. It was sort of as things were really progressing in that world. So worked very closely with these retail clients on optimizing that as well over the years. And I wanted to be on the client side. I feel like the agency side is this incredible opportunity to learn so much and to do a lot. And you kind of have all these wonderful ideas that sometimes the client doesn't move forward with. So I wanted to be that person that said, yes, let's do that. So went over to the client side. I went a few different retail companies. So New York & Company, for example, Tumi, I was running all performance marketing as well as CRM and analytics. And then went to Cole Haan, where I built out their retention and acquisition team. And then now here I am, Chief Marketing Officer at FTD. So running everything marketing, as well as owning the P&L with my counterpart, the Chief Merchandising Officer.
Wow, that's a lot. Definitely a lot combinations there as it relates to actual marketing, advertising side. The CRM piece of it is huge, especially in the space that you guys play in, and the loyalty that kind of builds into the business, I'm sure. So as it relates to FTD specifically, and for those who aren't as familiar with the brand or kind of how you all are positioned, tell us a little bit about the different brands that sit within your space and under your umbrella overall, and kind of your areas of focus within FTD and ProFlowers.
Yep. So it's FTD and ProFlowers. They're both gifting destinations, but we differentiate them in the way where on the FTD side, it's a little more elevated. We really message to the local aspect. The way that our business operates is if you're buying something floral that's being fulfilled by a florist, it actually gets sent to the local florist near the recipient. They handcraft it, hand deliver it. And, we do so much more for them, even beyond sending them orders. We really power their POS systems, their websites, anything from a technology perspective that they also need. We also do marketing on behalf of them too. So we work very closely with them as partners. So that really shines through on the FTD side. On the Pro Flowers side, it's a little younger, a little brighter, a little more fun. We take a little bit more risks on that side when it comes to things that we're doing in social media or different partnerships that we have. So while they're similar in what we're offering, we're definitely segmenting them differently from an audience perspective, as well as how we're messaging to them.
Got it. Awesome. It sounds like Pro Flowers, and I know we'll probably pivot into this a little bit more, but is a little more e-commerce focused, you know, and a little younger, as you said. So being able to be a little more flexible with some items. It's really cool and interesting that you describe FTD almost as I see as like a franchise support, but without actually being a franchise of FTD. Does that sound right?
It's similar. They're more partners as opposed to a franchise. You know, they have their own businesses that they're operating as well. But we do support them, you know, within that tech and marketing and order sending piece.
Awesome. I know whenever you joined, there was a lot going on with the brands. I think you kind of referenced it a little bit of as a reset. So kind of wanted to understand a little bit of what you walked into, the timing of why you were probably brought on, and the team that you built around you. So tell us a little bit about like that rebranding and reset that you faced when you walked in.
Yeah. So I started in April of 2020, which, you know, is a very interesting time to start. And what had happened was the company was sort of revamping their executive team. So I started as a chief marketing officer and really had there was a lot to sort of fix. The brand had gone through some shifts over the last few months prior to that. So there's two P&Ls within our business. There's the consumer side, and then there's that B2B side that I mentioned, which is our members. And marketing, there's marketing in all of those areas, but they were very siloed and they weren't really speaking the same language. So we made sure to combine that. The team was also just really not set up well from a tools perspective. So we did a lot of revamping when it comes to what tools they had available to them, what different channels that they were able to start to play in. There was also very much a new building of this customer journey too. The team was somewhat siloed in the way that they operated. So I sort of reshifted who reported into what their different responsibilities were. So that way we could really think full customer journey as opposed to really just thinking how one channel is performing in its own little world. So there were a lot of changes. It was fun because when I started, there was just a lot of opportunity. So, you know, we sort of created this test and learn environment, which was a really fun. It was kind of a fun time to do it too, because, you know, if we're all thinking about back during COVID, media was a little less expensive. So we had a little bit more budget to kind of play with and see what worked where. So we did a lot of that, and we continue to do that even, you know, in this post-pandemic, can we say post-pandemic world? Yeah. And then especially like with the cookies going away, it was really a nice foundation leading into our world today to really empower the team to think, you know what, I think this new social platform is going to work well for us. Let's try it. So it was a lot of changes and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds like a lot of pieces that were in play. And you had to figure out exactly where you wanted to combine certain areas with those silos, as you said. That probably played a lot into like looking at your like marketing media mix and how you wanted to look at things moving forward versus how they were historically done. Is there any detail around kind of what things look like, you know, like 2 or 3 years ago? And you know, how things even shifted from like maybe more of a linear out of home focus to like the social or digital space, and how you rebuilt, you know, or reestablished some new views on that?
Yeah. So when I first started, it was very lower funnel focused. It was, you know, we were sort of hitting the same people over and over. So one of the first things we did was start to really get into new customer acquisition channels. And like I said, that test and learn mentality, where should we be? What should we be doing? CTV and linear have actually been performing very well for us. So it's definitely channels that we continue to invest in. We also started to invest in TikTok, as everyone knows, started having that boom. And we didn't think it would work, quite frankly, going into it, because our audience, especially on the FTD side, it didn't seem to fit that TikTok audience. But we found a way to really message to that consumer and get it to work, which was super exciting. exciting. And yeah, and just continuing to find new ways. So either whether it's a new display partner or testing even existing partners against others to see if there's areas of opportunity, just continuously trying to find what works best.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great whenever you have the timing and the ability to do the test and learn and market, whenever you have the funds to do it, which in digital, you can do a lot of test and learn with lower amounts if it's not a huge, investment from a creative standpoint. It's very turnkey. So that's good and allows us to pivot very quickly when it's not going so great. So
for sure. And even on the creative side, we did and continue to do a ton of creative testing, especially as we were building out our rebrand, trying to figure out what resonated. It was a huge piece of what we did too.
Yeah. And we've seen with some brands too, with like using creators to actually do the creative for you is so quick, right? You're providing a brief to an influencer or creator. You can get that in market and get creative, within a matter of 24 hours, 48 hours sometimes once they're signed and everything versus, a larger creative approach, which we all need still, isn't necessarily as turnkey. But for the seasonal aspects and a lot of what you probably deal with from, those what I'll call moments and seasons that people are like celebrating, right? Gifting and stuff like that. So that's really neat in your space. I'm sure you guys kind of tapped into that a little bit. Speaking of, I kind of wanted to talk, you hit on the consumer journey a little bit. How do you guys look at the consumer journey as it relates to, connecting with that individual during their journey of those moments, as I put it? I don't know what you guys may call it, but that's the word that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, we call them occasions. Sometimes we do say moments too. But yeah, it's a great question because this industry is very interesting because you don't necessarily know when someone's like significant other's birthday is, for example. So for us, we want to sort of be ever present in someone's mind when it comes to where they should be going for a gifting moment. And so we do that a lot throughout our marketing. We do try to get a little bit more specific if we have some more consumer data as to like what occasion is coming up that they may need to be shopping for. But for the most part, we're sort of ever present. And yeah, our occasions, while we're very Valentine's and Mother's Day focused, we are definitely looking at other opportunities. We're growing even within other non-peak periods, really looking at what product is going to be best within, birthdays or Halloween, for example. What should we be relevant for and selling within those different occasions? And we're doing a lot of marketing around those too. So yeah, it's sort of this ever present. So that way you think of us when that occasion pops up.
Yeah. So being the first go-to source, whenever somebody needs you as a actual service, and to be able to have that, occasion of if it's gifting or if it's, to your point, Mother's Day, every year or something like that. I know I get automated emails from a local florist that I've bought before that I think you all actually support from some of the branding I've seen. So it's kind of cool that they actually have that automation set up from a CRM standpoint, to your point, to your earlier point of knowing, when I need to send a birthday gift, to my grandmother, or Mother's Day to my mom or something like that.
Yeah.
Earlier, you hit a little bit on ProFlowers, specifically with like testing into new platforms like TikTok and new opportunities. As it relates to ProFlowers versus FTE, is there some large differences in the actual marketing and the brand itself? And do you guys play a little more heavily in the digital space with ProFlowers, as you were kind of alluding to earlier?
We're fairly similar when it comes to where we're playing. To be fair, though, some channels are just invested heavier in on the ProFlowers side. So TikTok, for example, we do see it perform even stronger than it does on FTD. So we do play around with budgets as to which channels are performing stronger and which brand. From a messaging standpoint, we definitely try to differentiate them. Any sort of segmentation, we definitely split to try to, not make sure that we're overlapping between the two. But for the most part, it's really this messaging and segmentation breakout. that we do. We also, when it comes to different partnerships that we're looking at, we sort of figure out which brand it makes the most sense to sit in. So for example, FTD is a sponsor of the Kentucky Derby. And then on the Pro Flowers side, we work closely with the Dodgers. So kind of look at what makes sense for each too, when we're evaluating partners too.
Got it. And is a lot of that also like play into, like you say, Kentucky Derby and, you know, Dodgers, like, I start thinking like local efforts as it relates to certain DMAs, local florists, where it's maybe heavier that you're trying to support more actual brick and mortar shops. Is some of that weighed into your marketing plan for local versus national, or is the majority of it national?
So a lot of it is national. On the FTD side is where we focus on anything local though. So there is definitely a local piece to our budget and a lot of marketing there too.
Yeah, and especially I'm sure in the digital space where you can get, you know, hyper targeted within certain, you know, DMAs or geos that you're trying to go after. So that helps that whole story, I'm sure. Let's talk about our fun topic of measurement. You know, in this space, you know, I work with a lot of CPG brands. I kind of relate a little bit of, you know, what you guys have almost as a CPG, where you may be restricted to some of the data that's pushed back, you know, from the local shops. Tell us a little bit about like how measurement was versus where you're going with measurement now. You mentioned earlier, like the deprecation of cookies and less reliant on that. Can we just kind of give us a little more under the hood on how you guys look at measurement from an overall play?
Yeah, so I think we're all rethinking measurement, you know, especially some of the things that you just called out. So there's a couple things that I want to touch on. So from a actual activation standpoint, I think a lot of those channels that always worked aren't necessarily working anymore. So we also have to sort of rethink what that channel mix is. So we've done a lot of that. And again, that test and learn mentality that's been instilled in the team has really helped for us to figure that out. So it's really being able to take risks and see what else is out there that works, because it's changing. And then the thing that makes it even more difficult is, okay, now how do we even measure these new things, especially when they're typically channels that aren't last click related, and something that isn't really directly measurable. So what we've done a lot of holdout groups, whether it's doing certain channels within certain geos and then measuring effect and lift within those areas. We are investing in technology to sort of help us from an attribution standpoint to really understand our channel mix. So it's definitely this, we can't look at last click anymore because it's just not the same. And really understanding what channels have what effect when it comes to a halo on others.
Yeah, it's it's something we're all facing, obviously. Have you seen, you mentioned couple of things there. You mentioned the tool piece of it and how you guys are investing in your technology and your stack overall, I'm sure. Do you have a combination of both internal efforts for what you're building out as well as relying on external tools that, you know, leverage that?
We do. So we work with external partners when it comes to some of the tools that we have. Of course, you know, we have access and we're definitely in the weeds in it internally as well. And then we do have a data team who is very, you know, sort of our like right-hand people that we work with very closely when it comes to how to measure different things that we're working in, as well as what we should be thinking about from a measurement standpoint moving forward. So they've been super helpful with setting up dashboards, even helping us with some of these tools and living in them with us. So that's been really great too.
Awesome. That's always fun whenever you get some of those new findings coming into a role like this and being able to like dig at what's working, what's not, test and learn against certain things, you know, and being able to see what's really working with the consumer and how you want to pivot to your next, you know, campaign opportunity. So, I know that through the deprecation of cookies and everybody working through building out more data, a lot of marketers have faced, I don't have enough CRM data. I need to get that, you know, as soon as possible. Tell us a little bit about like you going down that journey, you know, within the last couple of years.
Yeah. So first thing when I started was to make sure that we had a CRM that was accessible to the team and being able to really use it to the best of their ability. And then, of course, building it out from there. So we have a loyalty program within each of the brands, which certainly helps from a data capture perspective. So especially within our worlds, we kind of touched on it earlier with not really knowing when someone's occasion is coming up. That is a piece of our program to make sure that we're trying to capture as much information as possible. So I think that's made some huge strides when it comes to capturing as much first data information as we can. We also have different like widgets and things on our site, which assist in being able to do that too. Our checkout flow, we're basically trying to get as much from the consumer without it feeling like we're trying to get as much data. And it's really to help personalize. I mean, it's in the benefit of our consumers to provide this for us so we can help remind them of that birthday that they might forget about or whatever that occasion is. So, but yeah, that's definitely been a huge focus over the last couple of years, sort of knowing one, it's best practice, but also just knowing with the cookie deprecation happening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine you keep the CRM data very segmented with FTD versus ProFlowers.
Yes. Yeah, they're very separate.
Very separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have any cross learnings between the two? You're like, well, I wonder if this relates over here at all, or vice versa.
We'll look at that sometimes. What's interesting is our consumer database has a very small overlap. So we're our consumers within each are actually fairly loyal to that brand. And it also sort of shows that we're doing a very good job of segmenting when we're getting new consumers in as well. But there's definitely some learnings, even, when we're testing into certain channels, if it works on one, will it work on the other? Should we test it in the same way to find out? So it gives us some room to play around, which is fun too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, especially whenever you have like some learnings, you're like, oh, it worked over here. Now let's try it on this brand or for this, initiative. So that's always helpful for sure. A little bit of on the kind of that split that you were describing. Do you have is your structure right now currently I'll call them media managers or marketing managers? Do they split on the ProFlower versus the FTD side, or do you actually have it come together at a certain point for that cross functionality? I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it's a good question. For the most part, so it is the same teams that are working on both. I've found that them having the knowledge of each, both to make sure that we're splitting them appropriately, but also to kind of take learnings from one and share with the other. We do find, though, we do have external partners within the social world, which are different per brand, because we just find that social is just so different for those consumers. So we sort of like the idea of having two completely different partners working on those. So that's the only channel that we sort of split the management of it. But for the most part, I like that everyone's sort of thinking through both. So that's how we've been doing it.
Got it. And then from the customer experience standpoint, obviously they have the two brands split. So it makes sense that you would have some areas where there are, certain initiatives and a certain brand voice and feel to the overall and, efforts that are happening within campaigns. So awesome. I know you have some really exciting things that are coming in the near future. You guys are working on some new initiatives that are kind of outside of your core. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you have coming that's exciting soon?
Yeah, so we are launching with a bunch of new partners when it comes to same day, next day gifting. So I mentioned our florist network, our members. They're this amazing resource to be able to have this same day, next day gifting experience where it's maybe not just a paper bag dropped on your front step from someone, but it's a gift. It feels like a gift. It is wrapped, it is hand delivered to you, and it's just this really beautiful experience. So we are actually working with a few different partners. We have Milk Bar and Baked by Melissa live already on our site. So, flowers with cookies or the little mini cupcakes from Baked by Melissa, again, delivered same day, next day within your area. And it's been really exciting to watch this unfold. Our members are so excited to have it in their shops. And the consumers have been really excited about it as well. And then we have some things coming too. So, we've got candle launch as well as alcohol, which we just feel from a gifting perspective, as well as with our brand is very aligned. So we're just continuing to really grow within our assortment when it comes to our merchandise and what is going to continue to be relevant for all of these occasions, not only Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, which are peak periods, but beyond that. So any occasion that you really need throughout the year. And what works really well with flowers, which is what we're known for. And so we have a lot of really exciting things coming, and that's just like a sneak peek at some of it, but a lot more to even come over the next few months, which we're very excited about.
That's awesome. Milk bar, cupcakes, spirits, all exciting things, and I know that personally too, like whenever I'm ordering a gift for someone that's like on the other coast and I'm not sure who exactly to reach out to or how to do things last minute, what you're describing is like perfect because you don't know if it's showing up in a brown bag and just sitting on the doorstep or if it actually, got handed off in a nice like way and packaged, overall for that experience. So that's awesome. So this will overall grow like the connections of local florist shops and partners that you have in market with these extended, occasion solutions and gifts that they can put out there. As it relates to kind of the growth of the business, do you guys see this as a huge piece of what you'll market in a new, different way, like to feature this? Like, what's kind of the vision? I know you're still like working on kind of some of these of what's next, but how does that look for just a tease?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've even, so the pieces that have been live, so Milk Bar, Baked by Melissa, we've done a lot of marketing, even in partnership with them. So it's definitely a huge piece of our marketing campaigns. And again, we've seen a lot of success through them, just being able to even touch new audiences through their CRM activations that they've had as well. So it's been really exciting and it's just going to continue to grow, honestly. So we're kind of continuing to see what are new places that we should be working with these partners, whether it's activations or different channels. We had a Milk Bar activation in New York City a few weeks ago, which just was amazing. We were giving away a little bouquet with a Milk Bar cookie, and they were all gone within an hour. We had hoped we'd have enough for like half a day. So like things like that, like how else can we just become even more relevant for the new consumers that we're hoping to get into the brand? So it's going to continue to grow for sure.
That's awesome. That gives a lot of like co-op opportunity too for marketing efforts, I'm sure, to help both businesses grow substantially with different offerings and different messages that are relevant, but looking at it from a different view. I'm curious, whenever you mentioned the CRM data like that you're able to use with some of these partners, and you can tell me like you don't want to go there or we need to pivot because I'm throwing this one for a loop. But is the measurement on that get more complicated for you? Like, because you're using other CRM data, or have you guys set it up successfully within your stack that you're able to get a clear view on like this came from that specific pipeline of who we're reaching?
So when I'm talking about sort of tapping into our partner CRM data, like they're doing the marketing, for the two of us. So not necessarily like a share piece, but yeah, I mean, we're always looking to sort of source things within our back end to understand how our different programs are operating from a channel level, as well as if it's a partnership. So yes, we do try to be able to get as much information as we can within the CRM to be able to segment our consumers and see what's working and what's not.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of collaboration that would have to happen between like you guys, the other partner brand that you're working with, like Baked by Melissa, and then your agency partners that you have as well. There's multiple creative agencies probably as well that are working on things. So on that note, I want to hear a little bit more about like what you've built out for what you were describing earlier, like of your team, kind of what does your team look like and who do you guys work with from an external standpoint too, of like what's in-house versus agency? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my team's really broken out into 4 areas. So there's retention, acquisition, member, which is really anything B2B related, and then brand, which all creative and production also sits under brand, as well as just brand marketing. And so we actually work, anything on our branded side is really done internally. We'll of course work with partners when it comes to activating on any sort of partnerships and things of that nature, but that team's incredible in ideating and creating content themselves and doing the whole production piece of it. And then anything paid media related, we are working with outside agencies. Our general thought is we should work with whoever's best within the different channels. And it's been working for us. To your point, there's a lot of coordination when it's set up that way. But the team's been doing a really great job of making sure that that's seamless. So yeah, so we're working with a variety of different partners who are sort of the best within their space. And yeah, so far it's working. So we'll keep that going.
Do you know offhand kind of your split between, what is considered like, lower funnel versus like upper funnel of those efforts that are in-house and externally?
We do, yeah, we keep that very close. So even, all of our reporting is broken out by funnel. So we're really tracking everything very closely to understand, from a spend all the way to a performance perspective. And again, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to Halo too, it really helps us to be able to understand, okay, if we started spending more in this acquisition channel, are we seeing a lift in brand searches or DTS or SEO, and trying to really set that aside so we can really understand if something's working or not.
Got it. I make the assumption that you probably do a lot at the top of the funnel, just for occasions, right? Because you don't know who's trying to get something when. And then you leverage your like CRM and remarketing efforts kind of in that lower consideration and actual like end market of what about someone. Is that a good assumption?
Yeah, and I'll like layer on top of that too, because to your point, there's a lot of acquisition happening, a lot of branding, and it's then kind of re-engaging them and pushing them down the funnel from there. So we're doing a lot of then retargeting off the consumers, visitors, being able to sort of re-engage them to come back. And with all of the capture, so like our email capture widgets on the site, making sure we kind of get them into that bottom funnel to kind of continue messaging to. So yes, it's very much sort of this flow of, okay, we've got their attention, they've come to the site, how do we kind of get them down to purchase? And we've got all maps and coordination across the team that makes the magic happen. So
awesome. Yeah. And I have a couple more questions, but just as a reminder, there is a Q&A box. If you want to submit a question, we'll jump to see if there's any questions there in a little bit, while we have Taryn. The other piece I kind of wanted to throw at you a little bit without a heads up on is as it relates to kind of that the acquisition layer and the remarketing layer of it. I kind of think instantly back to the CRM. Do you guys like look at things from a tiered model perspective of like, people who have not actually made a purchase in the last like 12 months or 2 years or something like that? Do you look at what's actually dated a little bit from that perspective?
We do. So we call them our customer cohorts. So we have about 5 of them, and we're messaging to them very differently. And in that map I kind of alluded to earlier, there's a completely different track for each of them and how they're sort of flowing through and getting exposed to our brand. So yeah, we've found that to be super successful when it comes to our marketing initiatives. It feels a little more relevant, and someone who just signed up for email needs a little bit more education versus someone who's been receiving them for 5 years. So yeah, that's definitely how we operate.
Yeah, and introducing a lot of the new services that you guys are new partnerships that you have with new gifting ideas and solutions for people to get them back in. So as it relates to kind of the competitive market, do you guys, I know that there's a lot of new apps out there that are, gifting services, and there's obviously it's getting a little competitive from that standpoint. Where do you guys kind of sit on your technology capabilities to, be app friendly and to be competitive with those that you're up against for like the next generation of customers that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's something we talk about all the time. Because yes, you're right. From a competitive standpoint, it's just continuing to increase, because even some of these destinations that aren't necessarily messaging themselves as a gifting destination, they're still being used as a gifting destination for those consumers. So it's definitely shifted, I'd say, over the last couple of years as to what that competitive landscape looks like. And from what we feel like our advantage is over everyone is, again, that experience. You're actually getting something handmade and delivered to you. It's not showing up in a box. It's not showing up in a bag. It feels like a gift. So to your point, if you're sending something to someone on the other side of the country and you can't actually do it yourself, it almost feels like you are. So that's really what we've been tapping into and looking to grow. And it's been, like I said, it's been working really well. And so we're really excited for it to keep going.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I know we have one question so far. We'll see if any other pop in here. And this one, I think, popped up earlier whenever we actually were talking about you joining the organization and all the changes that had to happen. And how did you get the stakeholders to buy into all the changes?
That's a good question. It needed to be fixed. It was very clear just from the performance of what was happening that a change needed to occur. So a lot of what I had put in place had worked in a previous life of mine. So it was fairly easy to say, okay, if we do it this way, this is the expected return or efficiencies that we'll be able to see. And really just sort of that branded piece too, and really investing in the acquisition space, proving that out. So we would start somewhat small and again, do either geo tests or some sort of holdout to be able to say, okay, this is the lift that we get from doing something like this. So we need to do more of it. And just continuously reporting out how things are performing. So we're very, very close to the data here, and just getting buy-in from stakeholders, the board, and you name it, just being able to share all that information with them so they're along for the journey and they understand what's happening.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know that from my experience, even whenever you try to go to market with like a new product, a client comes to us and they're like, yeah, we're ready and you're set to go, and you put stuff out there successfully and you're like, well, the targeting's not broken, but maybe the website could be optimized better and maybe the message isn't as clear as it could be. There's always those opportunities, and then you got to pivot to like, okay, how do we prioritize this, and what does the game plan look? Do we pull spend back, temporarily, or do we pause? So I'm sure you went through a lot of those like bumps in the road of learning on like what was and wasn't working for the brand and the customer experience ultimately, right? Not having to click through 5 times to find a solution of what they saw in an ad or something like that. So
yeah, and it's changed. I mean, some things that didn't work 2 years ago are now working today too. So kind of, you can't just sit back and say this didn't work either, is sort of another piece of feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And the patience, like the attention span is even shorter. So
yeah,
being able to like get it instantly and be able to connect them with the brand. So well, I have another kind of just closing question. Wanted to throw your way, since you're in the, I'll call it, majority of flower business, even though it's expanding. What's your favorite flower? And also playing off that, what's your go-to social media app that you use regularly?
So my favorite flower is a somewhat controversial one. It's the lily, because it's just very strong in scent. They get kind of messy when everything's sort of falling, when they're starting to wilt away. But I just love them. I think they're so beautiful, and I personally just love the scent. So it's not overwhelming for me. And then social media, Instagram. Personally, I'm of that Instagram generation. Like I can't get into TikTok personally.
Yeah.
I know from a business perspective, it's working and it's fun, and I don't know, it's Instagram for me. So
yeah, absolutely. I definitely am more of an Instagram guy myself, but I fall in the TikTok hole, as we call it, and it's where I do go to get entertained. If I want a good laugh or some entertainment, like it definitely is a good go-to solution. So yeah. Sylvia, I'm going to pass it back over to you. If you have any questions or wanted to hit on anything.
No, I just thought it was a great conversation. You gave some really amazing insights. So thank you so much for your time today. And I'll introduce our next group of speakers right now. We have John Collar, Chief Marketing Officer at Hard Rock Digital, and moderator, Kristen Dolan, Vice President of Media Strategy and Innovation at Influential.
Hey, Selvi, thanks for having us.
Of course. Thank you.
Excited to be here.
Yes.
John, a second to jump on.
Yeah.
Changing my background here. I'm trying to do is.
Oh yeah, is mine backwards or it's correct?
No, you're all good. Yes.
Oh, nice. I always have to ask because the first time I did this, I wound up being backwards because it was the right way.
Oh yeah, it can be confusing sometimes, but yeah, you're perfect right now.
You guys hate me if I go with my normal background?
No, of course not.
All right,
but,
let me come off here so we can start. So I apologize. I don't think I had the background working, but you can see my sports background. Maybe that'll help you see the intent of this discussion. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'll let you two take it from here.
Thanks, Elby. Good to see you. Hey, John, how are you?
Hi, Kristen. Good to see you again.
Oh, it's great to see you again as well. So yeah, let's dive into it, huh? I'm excited to chat today. So I guess what I wanted to start off with was the basic icebreaker question, I guess, which was how's your team managing post-pandemic? Are you guys remote? Are you hybrid? What is the office like now?
We call that the kids may be running around naked behind you question, which it's better when you have a blurred background or a background to the point earlier. I think that the teams are starting to really accept kind of where we are now, which is remote operations. I think there's, and everyone listening I know knows this, but I think this really has opened up a world of opportunity for a lot of individuals, particularly the younger individuals that are coming right out of school. We've had a lot of people that are like, hey, Hard Rock's, headquartered in Florida. I'd love to live in Florida just because of tax rates, sun, etc. Others have said, you know what, I'd rather live closer to home. I have hired most of my marketing team I'm in San Francisco, out of here because of the tech marketing strengths that we have here. But I think most people have accepted, hey, I can live anywhere, work anywhere. We're very hybrid. Work from anywhere, I think, is kind of the future here.
I think that's great. We're remote first too at Influential. And what I loved about that as I was building out the paid team when I started here about 2 years ago was we lifted the geo restrictions. So having that lifted, like you said, I'm actually one of those people that is looking at places in Florida actually for the taxes. New York is getting a bit much, So, but yeah, I think that was one of my favorite things when we lifted the geo restrictions and we were able to hire folks from literally anywhere. And that's been so great from a talent perspective. And we've been able to build one of the strongest teams, if not the strongest team I've experienced in my career, but it's been a phenomenal journey and really, really great results coming from that.
It just, I think it's really good from an org design standpoint as well. It gives you a lot more opportunity for talent. So that's really positive too.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to touch a little bit because I know the motif for today, the C-suite and marketing leadership. I wanted to talk a little bit about your background before we dig into the Hard Rock stuff. So I want to touch on, because you've spent majority of your career in gaming. So what are some of the ways gaming brands can level up in today's marketing environment?
I've spent all of my career in gaming, if you count video gaming for the first 25 years, and now real money gaming, which we'll get to in a little bit. I always have to differentiate that. But in video gaming, I was the head of marketing for 20 years at PlayStation, and then the last 3 at Twitch. I think one of the things that I have noticed from people that come from outside gaming into video gaming is that they don't necessarily grasp the concept that the gaming community is very much a village, and it's hard to break into. It's in every way. It's kind of got fortress walls, and you've got to really understand the mentality of that gamer. However, the gamer, this is shocking, I know, but the gamer is interested in other things besides gaming. And that behaviorally is something that sometimes marketers lose. They go, oh, you know what? This person is a Call of Duty fan, thus they must love chips and soda only. Right. And it's like, if you're going to do brand partnerships, or you really look at this in any other way, you really, I think, want to set up the Venn diagram of how the gaming players look at various forms of culture, music, sports. There's different concentric circles that emerge from kind of that gaming core. And this was kind of a key unlock that we had at Twitch. When I started at Twitch, which was strictly a gaming brand, and you can continue to pound them with frequency on your game. You can partner with, best in class kind of chips and soda brands, which are great, and I respect a ton. But there's a lot of ways you can bring kind of integrated music experiences or cultural experiences, other things, and really grow. And one of the things we tried to do at PlayStation a lot was get to that human truth of like, what defines a gaming generation. And for the PS4 launch and then going into the PlayStation 5 launch, with millennials and much of Gen Z, it was kind of this idea of celebritization and how you elevate yourself to a position of success in the world. And that's a real cultural insight. And it's not just like, hey, how many hours did they play in GTA? Right. So, I think those nuggets or those kind of kernels of like understanding of the player and then knowing kind of the other areas of that Venn diagram of interest and behavior is really interesting. And once you unlock it, there's substantial advantage over the competitors. Like that's one thing that, I would put out there for anyone in that category, substantial advantage.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, because then you're differentiating yourself against a whole new subset of audience that isn't necessarily intuitive, but based on qualitative backing and research, which I think is great because oftentimes, audiences are multifaceted. So it's interesting, not all moms are soccer moms, not all, things like that. And one of the accounts I had worked on a few years back, it was interesting. We launched the brand from the ground up, assuming our target was Gen Z. And it turned out when we were looking at the demographics of the people who actually signed up for the product, they were retired and empty nesters. So
right.
Yeah, very, very different from who we were marketing to who actually was signing up. And it was very interesting in terms of then we kind of double backed on our research and said, okay, well, you know what, let's play into this. How can we figure this out and market to the people who are signing up or who are most likely to sign up, right? So it's very interesting in terms of looking at it, like you said, from like the concentric circle or, models around, affinity segments beyond like the intuitive chip salsa situation, or and then also figuring out net new audiences too, outside of who you think your audience is. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And so I know you're being modest earlier, but you were at PlayStation, Twitch, Amazon. So not, mom and pop shops, but you are overseeing some of the biggest launches in the gaming industry. So I'd love to hear from you in a very vague question that you can answer in any lane you'd like. What is your approach to leadership?
Yeah, I love these questions. I mean, I think and I'll stay like as vague as possible to answer the question. But I think the real key is you hire the best and you let them do their job. Like, I think the idea of like a manager coming in and really kind of micromanaging the scenario and each person's responsibilities is demeaning to the employees, particularly those that we're hiring now in the younger generations, for really humans. Like you've really got to say, do I want to bring in A+ people? And then, am I going to let them do what they do best? Another thing that I think is really interesting is, to me, something that's interesting is when you look at the number twos in your org. So you have leads, you have people that report into you, but the number twos below them, oftentimes they're very, very hungry. And you can, I think, as a leader, need to understand, do they have the ability to step up and eventually become a leader in your org, or do it now? And I had a little bit of that at Twitch, where I looked across the board when I first started at Twitch and said, who's number two? And I found a number of them that were actually leading their org, their division that was reporting in, and was hungrier than the number one. We ended up moving the one out and bringing the two in to be a leader. And as you know, from being in your world and everyone else watching, the best way to evaluate whether that worked or not is, what's that person's next job? Like, when they leave the organization, eventually, where do they go? And if you have a good coaching tree, you can see a lot of success. And so in this particular instance, I've seen a lot of success from bringing those number twos to number one. And I think it also helps you build better benches across the org.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think I actually was just talking to my team about this last week, which was giving team members the lane to do their job, like you were saying before, right? So while we might be bringing in that same point person every single time because we know that we can rely on them, get the job done, I'm of the school of thought where no, let's bring in the teams together, talk about it collectively, and give everybody the lane to do what they were hired to do, right? And to do best. Because ultimately, right, not only I'm one of those people, and I know this is a polarizing topic, but I'm one of those people where I would rather have more people on the call for visibility, so they can have the same, everyone's operating off of the same level of information, the same, and everybody's perspective can be brought in the beginning, versus when it's too late. Because as a former media buyer, right, oftentimes strategic decisions were already made by the time I had to make a media plan. And so I had opinions too, right? Because we're at the time in the trenches, know what the nuances are for activating, know that some targeting was removed or some feature was added or taken away, or there was a new ad policy, right? So there's so much, and that's just one very specific perspective. And then there's so many others, right? So I'm of the mindset of let's bring everybody in, get everyone's perspective, at least on internal calls, right? For sure. And then for client calls, we can figure it out. But that's how we drive the best output.
I agree with you. I'll bring up one other example too, because I think it's pertinent. Is one other thing I think that we should all start thinking about doing is fresh eyes matter, particularly when you're doing creative campaigns and other things, right? And I think to your point, like more people that are involved, generally it doesn't sludge up the operation as much as people think. It generally provides new and fresh kind of diverse ideas. I have this example I like to use. We were in the middle of a very large campaign for PlayStation. I had hired a young woman from Nintendo that morning. It was her first day.
Wow.
And she was sitting in the back of the room. We had this long 2-hour debate about the music bed we were going to use for this particular commercial and in the campaign. And she sat in the back very quietly. At the very end, I'm like, hey, what do you think? Like, does this work? Like, you're coming in new. And she said, this whole thing's terrible. And here's why. And it's like, boom, 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 boom. And she was totally right.
Yeah.
So we took that back. We upended the whole thing, and it was all for the best because she hadn't seen it at all. I've been like knee deep in this thing for 6 months, and you become a little bit into the comp love and a little bit into the, like, I'm blind to the nuance. It was eye-opening. To this day, I still bring in people. I'm like, sit in the back, and then at the end, be like, tell me if I'm good or not. Because if not, let's disaster check these things and have a better understanding. So leadership, I think, also is about realizing that you don't have always the firm knowledge. You need to bring in others to provide better perspective sometimes.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. I think it's also, I mean, time after time, that's how we've been delivering the best outputs possible, because we have all of these we hire all these subject matter experts, right? We might as well put them to use and have like come up with the best possible scenario. And then also, we don't want to the client. So from like an agency perspective, right? Like, we don't want to yes. We want to really have critical thought and some data and research behind what we're putting together. And
we don't push back.
Yes. And we just want to make sure, and I think oftentimes, like, I'm the first one 100% of the time in a meeting to say, I'm too close to this. Somebody, like, I need to tag someone in to like fact check me or sanity check me, because there comes to a point where I have the self-awareness too of, I'm too close. I think I'm missing some things. And so, I think that's awesome. And being able to kind of just like compartmentalize, right? It's at the end of the day, we're just solving problems. So
we're in it together, right? Like, let's get to the best work.
Exactly. And so let's dive into Hard Rock a little bit. So Hard Rock being an iconic brick and mortar experience, I'd love for you to talk about how Hard Rock is approaching extending experiences digitally.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting question because I'm of the generation that remembers it as a t-shirt brand. Yes. And many of the people watching probably remember that too. And it's really not anymore. It started out as Eric Clapton, guitar on the wall at a UK cafe in like 1972. And it's evolved like quite a bit since then, and even moved past the t-shirt generation. And it's working very hard. That's a lot of what I do to become just younger and more digitally native. There's still quite a bit of work to do, but the real money gaming or the sports betting side, which is where I spend a lot of my time, it's, you're really talking about how do you take the experience from hotel and casino and cafe and entertainment, because entertainment is such a big part of the experience, and you bring it to the mobile environment in a way that kind of extends the brand benefits for those who want to take that experience on the go. The interesting thing about Hard Rock is it is such a big player in entertainment. I actually hadn't realized it to quite the extent when I started a couple years ago, and it is a massive player in that world. And so more kind of the younger generations, millennial, Gen Z, and even younger, are starting to think about Hard Rock that way. It's like, oh, I saw, this artist or that artist at a Hard Rock Live. They're not in it for kind of the cafe as much, or maybe the hotel as much, but they're in it for the entertainment. So how do you bring that and kind of reward and advocacy and loyalty to the mobile product? And that's what we've been working a lot on. It's fascinating because you're looking at a really kind of iconic brand that is changing with the times to become much more digitally native. And it's fascinating to be part of.
Yeah, that's what I think is exciting. And I think you answered my next question, but I'll ask it anyway, which is what are some of the things, or what are some of the major focus areas for Hard Rock now, and what's getting everyone excited? Is it evolving and becoming more digitally focused? Yeah.
So I've spoken at Brand Innovators presentations in the past, and I've spoken about this for PlayStation and Twitch, and I'm doing it again at Hard Rock. But Hard Rock's a challenger brand. And it's just like PlayStation was, just like Twitch is. And so we just finished a challenger brand project. And for those who have gone through that, and I know many have here, you really get to the roots of like, what's our monster? Like, what are we fighting? Like, how do we build a sustainable moat that separates us from the competition? Hard Rock as an entity is never going to be the brand that comes in and completely outspends the competition. They're not going to like throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. They're much more nuanced, much more particular and detailed about their approach. And so the way that we looked at this from a challenger brand standpoint, and it has gotten everyone excited, is if you think about Hard Rock as kind of that ultimate entertainment experience and entertaining players like no one else can, which is kind of the brand purpose, you can do so much with that to separate yourself from in the real money gaming world, very transactional, sea of sameness, race to the bottom. You guys have seen all the ads all over, digital and certainly linear. Mm-hmm. Just, if your player shows up, here's a $5,000 bonus, all that kind of stuff. Like that stuff is really a race to the bottom. I've tried to move everyone away from that and move much more into this. How can we entertain? Like, how can we hit the heart? Like, how do you do that? And so there are ways to entertain players to retain them once they come in and to make them feel like they're part of the brand. And that's really got, I'd say when you ask the question about everyone excited, everyone internally is very excited about that opportunity, because there is so much strength, I think, in the entertainment side with music and culture and all the other things that Hard Rock exudes, but also the players. Like, we've seen a lot more players start with us and stick with us because they're saying, like, this is something I want to be a part of. It's challenger brands are movements. And if you're able to create that kind of like emotional resonance and then, continue to market that way, I think you get a lot more opportunity. So that's what we're doing. And it's been successful thus far.
Yeah, it's always fun to have a challenge, right? And figure out how to navigate it. Because I was going to say, because there are quite a few players in the online sports betting category. And so with Hard Rock, thinking about how to grow mind share and adoption, right? I think you touched on it, right? It's hitting the heart, that emotional resonance. I guess in terms of how you guys are thinking about it, in terms of winning mind share, is there like a loyalty component? Is there content exclusives? I guess, how are you guys thinking about it like that?
Yeah, there's, certainly the big opportunity I think Hard Rock has, besides kind of the entertainment side and the challenger side, is that it does have nexus, right? There are properties there. You can go to Atlantic City in New Jersey, right? You can go to the Cincinnati property. You can go to, Fort Lauderdale. There's a massive number of properties across the states and then internationally, and utilizing those and bringing the Hard Rock experience with you as you go, mobily and digitally, is really the kind of thing that we're really focused on from a business standpoint. I think I mentioned it a minute ago, but one of the real scourges I think of the real money gaming industry or category right now is just that the transactional nature of it. A lot of people will enter a category, but they need trust. They need to feel like they're not being sold to, and also that it's not just us against them. You know, no brands succeed when it's a one-way conversation and it's we are going to try and take as much out of your wallet as possible. That is not a good relationship in life or in business. And yet a lot of the category has been built upon that. And I'll leave names aside, but there's a lot of like, we have our hand in your wallet and we're going to keep pulling as much as we can out. Thanks for joining us today. Like that to me makes no sense. And so, you know, I've moved us away from this, hey, let's just, if you know, this operator's at a $5,000 bonus, we'll be at 5,001. It's like that doesn't work. And eventually it just keeps, you know, it's an arms race. So you want to get out of kind of the transactional part. You want to get out of the smoky back room casino kind of idea of the category. You want to get much more into, I mentioned, like, how can you feel like it's a participatory event where you're inviting people in to your brand and you're allowing them to feel like they're part of it. We have something called Unity, which is a reward system that you have across both property and app. And you can, you know, the more you bet or the more you participate, you can kind of get your way into certain big kind of entertainment events. There's kind of random entertainment opportunities, you know, your favorite acts come in, maybe there's a way to meet them or maybe go backstage or, you know, a whole range of things that we can offer that others can't and that we'll be putting out there in the days and months to come. So it's pretty exciting to be able to do that because it's much more full featured and allow people to feel like they're part of us rather than like, hey, can you bet another $20 for us today? And we'll just keep pulling that out of your wallet. Like that's just not helpful, I think, in the long term.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think with consumer expectations, right? It's so instantaneous. Like they expect personalization because I think the consumers, we're again, going back to we're in it, right? We're in the weeds. So maybe, you know, a normal person that's not in our industry doesn't realize how much data right there that might be getting collected or it might be being collected on them. So they might not realize why they want personalized experiences, but they do. And so I think that's getting out of the transactional and more of like hey, how do we make this personal to you is huge because that is what consumers expect. And otherwise they're just going to look to a competitor, you know, to give them what they're looking for.
Yeah, totally. And like, you know, I don't want to like make it too muddy. Like there are people that'll say like, sure, if you're going to give me, you know, $5,000 to place a bet today, like, sure. But they just hop around. Like that's, you know, they're just bonus hunters. Right. And you're just giving money away to someone to be your friend for 5 minutes and then they're leaving. It's like, well, I don't think that's what anybody desires when you get into marketing to be like, I'm going to pay someone off to be my customer for a couple minutes and then see you later. I'll never see you again. Like that doesn't work. So, you know, the goal, as with anyone's business, is like, how can you get them to spend more time with you and to retain? And to me, the only real way to do that is to build that relationship and to say like, hey, we're going to keep providing you opportunities to play with us. And we value you as a customer and really continue to carve out that spot in the heart. Like, I think the emotional part really matters, and it does with all brands, but it certainly does in this category. You've got to really get out of this whole sea of sameness. It's really apparent. Yeah. And anyone who has watched any game in the last, you know, 2 years knows what I'm talking about, because it's just, there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah, I think I have something to add to this. So the ripple effect of what you're talking about into the media, right? So when brands play that short-term approach, or, you know, when they don't play the long game or play for lifetime value customers, is media then has to answer to why ROAS looked great this time a year ago and shitty now. So,
yes. Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting because, you know, I'm also of the school of thought, right? It's media's job to lead people to the horse to water, right? But we can't force it to drink. It's the site and the app experience. That's what's going to actually convert and drive people in and create that interest in long-term, you know, or lifetime value. Yeah. So I think it's interesting because there's been many reporting calls in my like earlier career that I was a part of where they're like, how come ROAS was amazing last year, but this year, you know, versus a year ago, it looks terrible. And you're sitting there like, well, we're implementing best practices, like we're doing everything right, we're checking all the boxes, and you forget there's these other extraneous extra context, right? And that might have been part of it because we were focusing on the wrong people last year versus this year.
For sure. So there's the audience mismatch issue. Yeah. And there's also the fact that I think, segmentation matters, sizing of segmentation matters. You need to know how many are in each, at least roughly approximate how many are in each segment, so that you know when you hit that saturation point. I've had the same experience as you, and then you look back, you're like, why is it not working as well? Oh, we got everyone, or we got the majority of those people, or they've gone to the category, and I need to work on a switching tactic, which is expensive, right, but I could do that. But they're not free and clear, and haven't even entered the category yet. Like they're participating or have participated. And so, yeah, it's like you kind of need to look at the macro to see how that works. I will pick up on one thing you said, though, which I think is interesting, is like, media can only do so much in this. They're kind of the gateway. And they certainly, if you do it right with the right creative, you can provide both kind of the narrative brand side, and you can provide the reason for being, or the performance side. I don't think those work really well, one or the other. Like together they work very well. We have this saying, it's like, you certainly performance is kind of the order of the day lately, and it's like it's a lot of high frequency, and it's like get married, and you're not really sure who you're marrying. Like there's not a reason. You're like, I don't even know who you are yet. Like, why are you asking me out? So there's like you kind of need both of those things together to make the relationship work. I think sometimes that's missed. So that's something else that I think it's certainly in this category, but in a lot of categories, it's like, hey, just if you smatter them with a whole bunch of like, kind of high-end display, or give them some CTAs, they definitely will come. It's like, yeah, but you're not going to get a long-term, at least high-value customer out of that in general terms.
No. And I think you hit the nail on the head. We have so much data too. We recently ran this for a brand we were working with around, when you only focus on like one message, let's call it the performance message, right? And so actually this is great heads up as we are in a looming recession, but and marketing dollars are being reassessed, right? So when I've had to run these exercises so many times, just market conditions aside, just to figure out, are we maxing out our lower funnel tactics? And if we're not, we typically would siphon from upper funnel or get incremental, right? And so when we're thinking about this, and as we're running these, the industry is running these exercises, it's really coming down to, it still is a combination, and it's finding that optimal, what is that balance of upper funnel and lower funnel? That is because if you only are maxing out lower funnel, again, you're going to find that quick success, but you're hitting diminishing returns way faster than if you have that healthy constant feed of the funnel with quality prospects. And then you're also doing a disservice to the platform algorithms that are trying to optimize, right? And with the more data signals they have, the better the outcome. And so if you're crippling their ability, the algorithm's ability to do its job, then that's where you're going to start to see higher cost pers, and alarms are going to start flagging, being like, why is my ROAS not good? Why are my cost pers so high? Like, I don't understand. Let's pull everything out of this channel because it's not working. But that's probably not what's happening, right? It's not, there's just not the right balance of upper and lower.
Totally right. Yeah. I mean, and then, you'll have a president or, CFO, whoever controls the strategy and the budget will be like, oh, this didn't work, I'm just going to pull this. And marketers obviously hate that, but it's the lack of marriage between that kind of upper and lower funnel that ends up killing most of these campaigns. And you don't want to have one versus the other. They really do kind of go together, to the extent that you can have the same targeted approach across both with really kind of hard hitting creative, you're going to see more success. And that's, again, like in this category that I'm in, it's a whole lot of like the lower funnel and a whole not much of the upper funnel. And it's, I think it ends up hurting over time, because you'll get a lot of these bonus hunters and other people who just be like, I'm just going to skip around. None of these brands matter to me from an emotional standpoint, and I don't care. They're giving me a bunch of money. I am a free agent and I'm going to go anywhere. And that ends up, your ROAS gets all wonky, and certainly you're not getting the quality kind of customer that you want for, best in class LTV.
Yeah, that actually leads us into the data conversation, because I was going to obviously talk about data, as it is something top of mind for every marketer. But with all the different offerings at Hard Rock, right? The hotels and resorts, casinos, the experiences, online sports books. So, and with customer needs and their financial situations changing, how does Hard Rock understand who is the best customer for each offering?
I mean, I think all of those different offerings provide opportunity, and Hard Rock knows a lot about, its customers and its potential future players. I was shocked when I came in to see the difference between like the sports betting side and slots or hotel stays or cafe. This may not surprise tons of people, but those who play slots are not the same as those who bet sports. And so if you're trying to utilize data across those, from a database marketing perspective or any other kind of co-marketing campaign you might do across various parts of the enterprise, those don't always perform well because you're talking to someone where I'm not interested in this at all. And so it goes back to, I think, Kristen, what you were saying earlier is the idea of targeting and personalization is so important. Knowing who you're talking to and just understanding those segments. There's a select group that go into Hard Rock cafes, as an example, that are very much into the retail sports book and probably would be interested in taking it on the go digitally. And so that's a really interesting area for us. They come and they watch games. Like, okay, that's actually someone I can actually target. They have a lot of data on these people, a lot of data on those who's staying at the property and what they're coming in to do. Are they coming in to see the Rolling Stones, which came in, a couple months ago? Or are they coming in just to gamble? Or are they coming in to, have fun on vacation, do other things? Understanding all those things allows me then to be like, okay, I can actually talk to that person, but I shouldn't talk to this person. And, being very kind of true about that is, I think, the most efficient way to think about it. And I would say for everyone, listening here, being exceptionally tight with your segmentation and trying not to have gaps between each of those segments, I think is a really smart bit of marketing. And the audience management part is everything to me. I think that's the ultimate, like, if you can be as efficient as possible in any one way, it's got to be in the audience management part. I've seen a lot of marketers trip up here.
Yeah, especially now with audiences or audience sizes, right, kind of truncating due to signal loss. So I think that's the other thing. Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
And I think also with, so I completely agree with that. And I think, it's all about, right, how do you mitigate wasted ad spend? Because to your earlier point, and I can't count how many times this happens to me, I wind up on a newsletter. I have no idea how I got on, right? Or I wind up still getting retargeted for something I literally bought from that company. So,
yeah, that is so bad. That is so bad.
When that happens to me, part of me wants to email them and be like, I can help you.
You're like, your CMO's not very good. Let me help you.
Yeah, I can totally help you guys. Like, let me know.
You already got me. Like, can I help?
Just like, please remove me from your targeting. Thanks. Or, hey, if you want to cross-sell me with this could work. But
I promise you, I'll click the link and give you attribution.
I saw a recent post on LinkedIn. I forget who posted it, but it was just a satirical picture of, how in like Canal Street, everyone sets up their shops. It was this guy that was just set up, here's all my data for sale. And it was just like framed pictures of like, I went into Taco Bell 3 times this week. So I thought that was hilarious. I got a good.
That's awesome. That's really good.
If only, right?
Yeah, I was like, if only we could just go shopping for that. That would be fantastic. But you're right, like loss of signals, the other thing. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum, but like that part really is difficult to manage. So to the extent that you can get your own first party, and then you're able to actually get the right type of segmentation around who you're talking to, so much the better, and not talk to the person who and please buy this product even though they already bought it. That's terrible.
Exactly. And I think this segues nicely because I wanted to talk about innovation, especially with the challenger brand, right? I feel like innovation is what drives that competitive separation. And so what is Hard Rock's approach to innovation? Again, sorry with a vague question, but figured
no, totally. Innovation's a bit buzzword-ish. And like, I think, to me, the best way to think about innovation is to figure out a way that you can create a moat where your competitors can't attack you. Like that's the way I always think about it. It's not like stunty kind of cool tactics.
Yes.
And I always tell agencies this. I'm like, don't come with like stunty stuff. Like it's got to be sustainable, and it's got to be a way for us to separate from the competition permanently. Like how can we think about it that way? And many times I think that part does land on marketing, like to express, how to separate. I found myself dropping a lot of ideas that create new ways to think about a brand, and like to, I don't think it's kind of just a like, hey, we'll snap our fingers and here we are. I think it's much more around, how the customer carves out part of their brain or even their heart for your product or your brand. Give you an example, some things that we did in the past, like Twitch's a good example. We said, you know what, obviously everyone knows Amazon, the parent brand, is known for e-commerce. What if we did our own e-commerce and we had it around our streamers selling gaming and other kind of cultural items near Prime Day, not on Prime Day. And we called it Twitch Sells Out. And we did kind of this 48-hour, actually it was 36 hours straight stream, so we could get it around the world. And we had all the different top streamers kind of drop in, Pokimane and Tim the Tatman, et cetera, all these people, and they would help sell these products, but do it in a way that was like really quirky and fun.
Yeah.
And it ended up really kind of separating us in many, many ways from where YouTube was and where Mixer was at the time, who's now in business, because no one else is doing this and no one else could. So you look at like, where are my strengths? Like, where are the things that I can do, and to really promote that. And it separated us from that point. People were like, oh, it's not just a gaming brand, it's a gamer brand for things that gamers are interested in. And it goes to what I said at the beginning. It's like that message really resonated. So those are the things. And it was one event. It was not really stunty because we ended up kind of thinking about doing that over time, but it set up a sustainable moat and it separated us from the competition.
Yeah, that's so important, because innovation, it can mean a lot of things. And it's part of my job at Influential in terms of how do we, make ourselves more competitive, defensible, right? Unique. We're privately held. So, increasing our valuation. And so those are the types of things we look at. And oftentimes, I play a consultative role for brands, because it's the year of something always, right? The year of mobile lasted like 10 years, I think, but it was, then it was like video, metaverse, right? And, NFTs. So oftentimes I find myself in client conversations where it's clinging to a buzzword. And I share the same definition that you have, John, around innovation. It's, building that defensible moat. And so I always ask like very similar questions in these meetings to figure out, what is your competitive advantage? What is the goal? And it actually opens up a lot more critical thought around not just doing, let's say, metaverse for the sake of doing metaverse, but offering up what is that value exchange? What is that experience? And how can that help sustain you moving forward? Because I'd hate for a brand to be spending all of this money to just see, a PR headline, right?
Yeah.
And instead, let's talk, we can get the PR headline, but let's talk about how we can take this investment and make it worth your while over time as well. And not just, a quick hit of like innovation box checked, right? And so it's avoiding that and putting more rigor behind it.
And I don't think anyone wants innovation to be short term. Like you wouldn't want it to be this one moment in time and moving on, because those are expensive, very inefficient, and honestly don't do much for you other than, maybe you'll get one day's worth of sales or something, but like, that's not really innovation. Innovation is a strategic shift that places you on a different plane. And that's the thing that I think, like you were saying, like, that's the thing that gets you an advantage over time. And it's what we all should be shooting for. Like we all should be trying to separate to the extent possible.
Yeah. And putting a customer hat on first. And I think that's what I loved about, actually, I know signal loss is more of like a negative topic, but I love when we're talking about signal loss, it actually forces clients, right, to think more of their first party data and put that customer centric hat on. So speaking of like, being in it and being in the weeds, it's actually forced everybody to kind of take a step back to be like, okay, what do our customers like about us? What do they not like? Where are they dropping off, right? How how can I improve my site experience to give them what they're looking for? And I love having those types of conversations because the marketing fundamentals haven't really changed. And so it allows us to kind of take that reset to be like, yes, you need you need to make it easy for people to do business with you. If your site's gated for cookie prompts and I can't move forward without saying accept all, like that's probably not the best way to get me onto your site, right? And that's probably where you're seeing a lot of drop off. So figuring out, consumer first ways to make the process better.
For sure. And that goes into the thing we were saying earlier. It gets out of a little bit of the laziness of some of the third-party data of just slamming people with, performance messages without really knowing who they are, what they want, or what their behavior is, and not fixing yourself, to your point. And the first-party data really gives you that focus group test, qualitatively to be able to oh, we got some issues, we got to solve this, right?
Yeah.
We always say it's hard to market a bad product. So, first party data can help you solve that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to also ask, and I think this might be a short answer, but what role do influencers play for Hard Rock? Selfishly, I have to ask, coming from influencers.
I don't know. I knew you were going to ask. In the real money gaming category, sports betting category, it's a challenging area. I come from the world where, I was the head of marketing at Twitch. So it's like, yes, I'm a full believer in it, and set up a whole department for it at Hard Rock, but quickly realized that it's very difficult in this category. It's much better in the other parts of Hard Rock. So much better in, we have influencers across, hotel and cafe and entertainment, et cetera. But within the betting part, it's hard because each of them have to be personally licensed in the market where they're at, and they have to abide by each market's set of rules. And those are all different state by state. And so it becomes pretty challenging for them to operate. Doesn't mean they can't, but it can be very difficult. And so you see some of the other operators in the category doing this, but they're very cautious how they do it. It's not like you would see with certainly like a Twitch or a YouTube or PlayStation or any of those places. So it's very different. And I don't think it's going to change for a while because regulators in each state love the tax revenue that comes in from this category, but are very kind of have a heavy hand on things like influencers and the marketing messaging that goes into it.
Yeah, the online sports betting and finance are the most, I would say, and alcohol is the most, the most regulated in terms of what you can and cannot do. Like the creators have to be licensed, like you said, the company has to be licensed, have the proper disclaimers. We have to then create or apply those disclaimers to the creator's social profile, not just the content, but overall they have to be approved for the disclaimer. So it is a very meticulous process, not impossible, but was interested to hear your perspective on how it's going with that.
Would love it to work better. I would love it to work better. Marketers in this category would love it to work better. It's just more government controlled than maybe we're used to.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, Selby. Welcome back.
Thank you. Well, I really enjoyed that session. So thank you both so much for your time today. And I'm going to welcome next Maria Hokanson, Executive Vice President of US and Canada Marketing at Dairy Queen, moderated by Katie Castillo-Wilson, founder and CEO at Tap On It.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi, coming.
Great. Here you guys have it.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, Maria.
Hi, so good to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, especially after our very entertaining first introduction yesterday. Thank you for your patience.
Loved it. Loved it.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Maria and I met last minute yesterday, a little later than we had planned due to all sorts of different reasons.
Life, right?
Right. But luckily we've become fast friends.
So, I know, right? Love it.
Well, for everybody, I'm Katie Castillo-Wilson. I'm the founder and CEO of Tap On It. And here you have Maria. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Maria Hokanson. I lead marketing for US and Canada at Dairy Queen.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I am so excited to talk about all of the things that you have going on. yesterday was so inspiring, and I'm just really excited about everything you're doing with Dairy Queen. Before we get into all that, I do have to make sure that you know that my very first job was at Dairy Queen.
I love that.
I can make the perfect little
Stop, drop, and curl.
Stop,
Exactly.
drop, and curl. Yes. So Dairy Queen has a very close place to my heart, and I'm sure many other people as well. But tell us about your journey. How did you end up at Dairy Queen? What has that been like so far?
Well, I'm so fortunate. I was 15 and I knew I wanted to go into marketing, and my goal was to be someday at the helm of a marketing team at a brand I loved. And so fast forward, here I am now having a teenager or two in my own house. I'm like, whoa, that was rare that you know what you love.
Right.
So my career until DQ, so I should start, I've been at DQ 18 years this week, it will be. And as I like to say, like, my career at DQ could vote, like, wow, I don't know how that happened, but I've been so lucky. So pre-DQ, I worked in retail marketing. And so at 18 years ago, I had the opportunity to join DQ and was the mall marketing manager. So any DQ, Orange Julius in a mall, I kind of was the national marketing manager for. And what has happened since then has been so wonderful. You work a role and you think, gosh, I've put my stamp on it. I've probably taken it to where I probably need a fresh challenge, and this probably needs fresh perspective. Sure. Every time that's happened in my career here, where I've been kind of itchy scratchy for a new opportunity, one has kind of fallen into my lap. And so what I love about it is by switching, I started more in the marketing communication side, moved over to the product side, then was able to weave that together as I moved up. I was able to change, from beverages, which are very female skewing, to, the food side of the business. So while working within the same brand, it was like having a completely different consumer set, but having this completely different opportunity, but knowing where the bathrooms were. So and having those relationships that are so pivotal to helping move forward initiatives. And so here I find myself working with a team that I absolutely adore, a boss that I think so highly of. And I feel very lucky for the opportunities I've had.
So that's pretty amazing. I love that. So Dairy Queen really works on promoting from within, giving opportunities to the people
I've certainly had that opportunity. And there's a nice blend within the team, I feel like, of people who have fresh perspective and are coming in, and kind of that legacy kind of understanding of the brand. And I think that's where the magic happens. It's when those two meet and we can all work together to drive it forward.
Well, I mean, Dairy Queen has been around for
over 80 years. Over 80 years.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know that they are just, America's brand, they've got a cult following. Mm-hmm. I was telling Maria yesterday that my daughter, when I go out of town, punishes me by buying an entire Dairy Queen cake that she then proceeds to eat herself over the next few days. I'm like, if that's the worst thing that you do as a teenager, we're okay here. But I mean, it's one of those things where I grew up going there, with my friends, with my family. And so it's kind of got that special place in your heart. So talk a little bit about, I know that, how many locations do you guys have?
7,000 across the globe and a little over 5,000 in US and Canada.
That's amazing. And are they majority corporate owned, franchise owned? How does that work?
So we are predominantly franchisee. We have 2 corporate locations that are located right here near our franchisee support center. We're based out of Minneapolis. And so really we the bulk of our business is franchisor relationships.
Okay. So, over 18 years, things have changed a lot when it comes to marketing, communication, even POS systems.
Right.
I can only imagine that working with that many franchisee owners is somewhat like herding cats.
It it's beautiful in the scale that you get having all of these franchisees. And the other thing that I think is really powerful about this model and about DQ in particular is one of the big points of difference for our brand, and you touched on it with what you were talking about with the brand, is the emotional connection we have with our fans. So, it's different. It hits different than a McDonald's or a Wendy's, where people have this emotional connection. And we talk about it. We call it here a smile and a story. When you say you wear logo wear at the airport, people stop you and tell you their smile and story. And so it was their first job, or their daughter loves getting the cakes. And so, it's kind of magical and special in a kind of quick turn business like this. And so our franchisees are a big part of having built that, because they are in the communities.
Sure.
And many of our franchisees own 1 to 2 locations. So they're rooted in the community. They're known. They're at the games. They're part of that. And that makes it really special. On the flip side, they're all entrepreneurs by heart. And so the challenge is, and the wonderful thing that keeps us employed really, is that we need to galvanize that and find system-wide solutions and really garner that engagement within our franchisee group to support that, whatever the initiative is. And so it is challenging, and it does make creating change potentially a little slower. But what I found is, over my short time here, is there's such that passion for the brand that consumers have is tenfold with the people who are a part of the brand. And so everybody's very passionate about driving this brand forward, making DQ as powerful to for tomorrow's generation as it is for today. So I find that when you're moving things forward, if you get to that commonality, that's really powerful. And although, there's always different perspectives on what will drive the business, you can find those unification moments and really focus on that and create change.
So is there anything, like major that's happened even over the past year or so where you've had to create change across 5,000 locations?
Yes, I think there always is. But
sure.
I would say, during the last couple of years, it's amazing the dichotomy of how brands were hit during COVID, right? So we were incredibly lucky during COVID, or during the thick of it anyways, of having drive-through, and also being a place with our food and treat duality, being a place where people could have a moment of celebration that was pretty simplistic.
Enjoy. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. That's what our brand's about, is amplifying joy in the everyday. And so you may have experienced it. There were long lines at our drive-thrus because people were craving that.
Well, and they're willing to wait for it just because they got you out of the house.
Right, exactly. It's like, we're out, get in the van, everybody. And so we luckily during that time frame did very well business-wise. And so now, but there were a lot of things that it accelerated for us as it did others. And one of the projects that was in flight that we're really leaning into more is the digital prowess. And for us as an organization, because we have that entrepreneurial spirit, you can imagine our register systems. We had everything from, old school to shiny, flashy new, and we're really working to unify and have what we're calling an integrated technology platform. So what that allows us to do is have a full mobile experience. So mobile ordering, loyalty, and then our deals, which are available regardless if you have that technology or not at the store level. And so what helped, I think, during that time frame was our franchisees really became heavier users of digital. And I think that helped propel the like alignment behind how important that is, because they were seeing and feeling that in their lives too, which is really, you know, a wonderful thing to help foster change, is they saw that burning platform, if you will, for change. And so now we're at the point where we've had a loyalty program, but we're at the point where next year we're really going to turn on the marketing lights nationally. And it's a great loyalty program. We've been awarded in Newsweek America's Best Loyalty Program list for 2 years now. But I know, we're very excited.
Right? That's awesome. Congrats.
It's back to that fan love, right? So it's now we're going to be able to talk more about it and really provide that experience to the bulk of our fans. So I think that the experience of the last couple years as a consumer really helped our franchisees understand that opportunity.
Sure. I mean, they got to learn quick, but then also see the long-term benefit of what that, you know,
exactly
first change,
exactly.
What came from that. So, okay. So next year, which is crazy that it's,
I know,
it makes me just go crazy. So next year you're going to really start to promote loyalty. What are you most excited about when it comes to how you're going to get that word out there and really spread it? Is there any like big campaigns, anything cool you can talk about?
So we're really excited. We're looking at it from a, you know, full 360 approach. And what I'm excited about is really using the full funnel. I'm, you know, getting out there. We are a quick turn industry. So the fast food industry is really about getting that new news out there every month. And so the full funnel is really important to us. And so that will be wonderful. The other thing is we're excited to kind of integrate partnerships. This past year, we've been working with MLB and had a really fun.
Oh, yes. I love this. Okay. Talk about this. This just is so cool.
Yes. So this was a really exciting opportunity for us. We look for partners and partnerships that really have nice concentric circles with our brand. And MLB is just the perfect example of that. Iconic, American kind of Americana.
America's pastime.
Exactly. Yeah. Summer. We know that if you come to our patios on weeknights during the summer, it's filled with, you know, teams, and we're kind of the post-game stop. And so this past year, we tried a lot of things with this partnership, which was really fun. It was an opportunity for us to sink our teeth in. And a couple of the big things that were really powerful for us that are spinning our wheels for next year is we saw the engagement really, you know, our fans and MLB fans really engaged. And, you know, when people are engaging on social platforms and others, it's breaking through, right? And it's connecting emotionally. Yeah, exactly. And so that was really powerful. And then the other thing was we used some players in some of our advertising and saw via testing that broke through the clutter differently for us. Mm-hmm. We also, you know, we're about amplifying joy. So we owned Grand Slams throughout the season. So every time there was a Grand Slam, fun fact, there's roughly 5 per week.
Oh.
Who knew? Not me.
No, I would go sports.
Go sports. But you know, we learned to find in partnerships and curate those real connection points. And what I think the team is doing a beautiful job of is, you know, really looking back, learning from what we've been doing and applying that to how can we evolve and adopt, learn, and make sure that we're, you know, taking the good parts and enriching those. And I think, you know, we're kind of, MLB owns Little League. So, you know, thinking about, you know, are there opportunities there? But really, you know, as we look at partnerships, I think that's a huge thing that's evolved over time in marketing is, you know, deepening community connections with other like brands. And I think I think that MLB for us is certainly that. We've had success in the past with Jurassic World and some of the partnerships there where, it was about bringing in, my generation, bringing our kids and, so finding those like-minded moments and summer blockbusters, that's really powerful and is a way to break through.
Well, yeah, MLB is such a natural fit. I love that. I think it's so cool. So, okay. Again, you talked a little bit about the full funnel, right? Mm-hmm. So top of the funnel, that brand awareness, driving the conversion. Where in all of this does like first party data, zero party data, how does that fit into your plan and how you guys drive decisions?
Yeah. So, we're early on in our journey on this. So with this new register platform that we're getting close to really nice penetration on, we've been building our digital ecosystem very thoughtfully because it's critical. And so what we've been doing is more build mode. And so starting next year is when we're really putting kind of like fuel on the fire there. So what we've done is we've had siloed data. So we have a very strong Blizzard fan club email base. And I think email is, kind of the legacy of at our brand, first party data or zero party data. And so we're leveraging that. We're leveraging our app users and really trying to make sure that we're learning. And as we're learning, developing and understanding, how the rewards work, what are consumers looking for, responding to, how do we better, look at and segment our consumer base. And so we're in the early phases of that, but what we're excited about is we've built the platform now and can really, really layer into that. And we've got a nice, pretty sizable group of consumers to talk to, and they've been really engaged and we can, what we love about this space is you can test and learn so quickly. So we're really flexing that muscle, which is, in a brand that was not too many years ago, 100% all in on TV, that's a pretty big shift for us. And so that's been fun to be a part of. And I think a legacy that our team, or fingerprint kind of, if you will, that our team today will leave on the brand, which I think is powerful because it's another way to foster those connections and really learn from your consumers and help understand how you can better connect.
Well, I think that's awesome. Okay, so you mentioned email. Mm-hmm. Sorry, my dog wants to come to this meeting.
It's so great.
And then he left. I just
so
rude. Sorry. Okay, so Tap On It, and you and I talked about this a little bit.
Yes.
Just so for everyone who does not know, Tap On It, we are a text message marketing and communications platform. So where MailChimp might be for email, Tap On It is for text. And, obviously, like I said before, Dairy Queen is close to my heart. The loyalty program totally makes sense. Keeping people engaged, one of the top ways to do that, because we all open our text messages and we all have our phone right here, is definitely via the cell phone number. Where does that fall into your plans and your strategy?
It's so great that you mentioned that, because this year, as we were unifying our data, we added in opt-in for texting. And honestly, we were really surprised the amount of fans that were interested in that. So it's something that we've just started. But we've been really blown away. We've set KPIs and then we just we're like, whoa, we realize we are not good at setting KPIs on this front because we're just learning so much. Right. Yeah. And we're really creating the benchmarks, right? And so what we're working on now is really looking holistically at our fans and understanding who, what, where, and when, and with what promotion or what communication do we create? And then the other thing that we're doing, it's not only about the data, but it's about the content and making sure that we're producing and teed up to have the right content for the right consumer at the right time, which again, that's a huge shift as well. Thinking, back 10 years where it was, 12 TV spots a year. Right. Now it's like a content factory, if you will. And we're I love. I love that too, but that's a huge
lot of work.
Shift.
Yeah.
And it takes letting go of some of the preciousness that we've built as we look at like our video investment buy. When we're buying for linear or some, a 30 or 15-second spot, we do want those to have a certain production value. But as we're A/B testing and moving lower funnel and being really authentic on TikTok and other channels, we've really, as have other brands, had to let go of that preciousness and gotten more comfortable with kind of on the fly production, which is a big shift for us. So it's about you kind of look at the people, the process, and the technology and how it all works together. And are we making sure that we're driving that strategy so everybody knows what they're working towards? And that's one of the challenges we've been working is we have so many teammates, working on so much. The velocity is huge, making sure that we're all kind of coming from that unified space and strategy is critical.
So I would think, so this is a question, I guess. You talked about the engagement around MLB and that partnership. Mm-hmm. I mean, by letting people help create the content through things like TikTok and stuff like that, do you guys see a lot more engagement around those things too?
We do. And, our UGC, our user generated content is the stuff of melting hearts. Like we are the home of sticky chins. And
that's exactly what I was just thinking.
And so our UGC is so incredibly powerful. It works really hard for us. And I will say, we have fabulous teammates and partners, but the way that people show up and the creative, like our fans and how they talk and how they think about things is just you cannot make that up. And
the influence that they actually have, the expanded reach, the way that things go viral and and especially with things like that, immediately I thought of my son with, hot fudge and, just a mess. And those are awesome memories, right? It's a sticky mess at the moment when it takes place. Right.
But then you look back on it so fondly. Yeah. And so for us, it's been a learning on, how do we best maximize that? How do we on the fly use it and create an environment where we can, so that, we've worked through okay, we've got for something that's going to be a quick turn, less approvals, and how do we do that? And how do we, as we're building our influencer strategy, how do we tap into that feel and that vibe and get the right influencers and at the same time really modernize the look and feel of our brand while still being true to the heart of it and what our franchisees know and love too. So it's a really fun and challenging time to work on such an iconic brand, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. There's so many things that are just changing all the time. I would imagine that it is a lot to keep up with when it comes to social media, thinking about TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, whatever, all of the above. Is there anything that you see like the most success with? Are there channels that you guys tend to spend more time on?
It's interesting. Facebook is what we're noticing is, and I'm sure this isn't a surprise to many, but, Facebook acts more like a more upper funnel and gets to the masses, gets to a little bit older demo, following Facebook demo. And so what we're really focused on as we added TikTok. We're trying to be really wise about what channels we're in and how we support them. Is how do we think about social we're calling it with a capital S. We've kind of looked at it more siloed, organic and paid, and we're really trying to have the team think more holistically about it. And how do we leverage that? How do we then play in the earned space as well? So we did an activation a few weeks ago where it was the launch of our fall Blizzard menu. And we did a giveaway.
That pumpkin blizzard.
Yes, right. Pumpkin pie blizzard back. And we did an activation where we did a social sweepstakes for scented pillow flights to help that were inspired by our fall blizzard menu. And yes, and we really made it social first to drive that engagement. And so we want the earned and the social to kind of feed off each other to really propel that buzz. And we're looking at, do we throw paid on certain things, or where do we use the paid? And so it's really interesting how you think of, and it performed extremely well for us. We got national hits on the earned. The engagement was fabulous. Now, what's fun is the winners are receiving the flights. So we're getting a lot of unboxing content that's like a
cool, I bet.
Of it. Yeah. And so, you know, it's how do you connect all of these different aspects so that you can act, you know, we are minuscule compared to McDonald's, who is our biggest competitor, right? So how do we make ourselves seem and feel bigger? And it's when you can get that integrated push like that. So you're in the news, you're seeing things on social, you're seeing things from your friends that, you know, hey, you know, something's happening in fall at Dairy Queen. That's not what I would expect. And then, you know, making ourselves look bigger by, like this year, our partnership with MLB. So we had a big takeover on our cups and things like that. So it's like, how do we make ourselves look, feel, and act like a bigger brand, and getting more than our fair share of that buzz than maybe we should?
No, it's well-deserved. And, you know, it's funny, I guess I wouldn't have thought of McDonald's as being your top competitor. Do you think that most consumers think about it that way? You
know, it's interesting. So this is one of the biggest challenges of working at DQ, and it's really fun, but it's a challenge. Is we are a food and treat brand, and what's interesting about that is food is our biggest frequency play, because you eat every day, but you don't treat every day. And so
let's do my daughter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's great. But you know, it's like, how do we live up to both when we have such a heritage in treat? So interestingly enough, we are a leader in chicken strips in the quick service, like fast food industry. And we're number 5 in selling burgers. But you wouldn't.
Really?
Yes. But you wouldn't think of us for that. You think of us for the treat. And so our job, part of what our team works on is the menu vision and the menu strategy. Because as one of my teammates says, when you work at a restaurant brand, the menu's like the sun. Everything kind of revolves around it.
Sure.
And I love that. So with our menu visions, think of other food treat brands. There's Sonic, there's Culver's if you're in the Midwest, Shake Shack, Freddy's. We're kind of one of, or the biggest national brand like that. Yeah, sure. And so it's a unique space because a lot of those brands started with both. And so they, you know, so for us, while we have and sell quite a bit of food, our job is to make sure that we stay the treat leader that we are, but also build that food frequency and that food love. And
so
really,
how do you do that?
Well, you know,
like what works best in, I mean, because I would guess it's the awareness, making sure everybody knows that you got the food in addition to all the treats.
absolutely.
And then
it comes down
turning it
to
into some sort of a
it
habit.
comes down to every moment matters. So, you know, think about what's beautiful about a digital experience is when you go on and look at our menu and order digitally, you are forced to look at the menu. Whereas when you pull up to the drive-through, you might just be thinking, I'm going to get an Oreo Blizzard. So in the consumer journey, it's about how do we message that? How do we talk about food and our build and continue to enhance our food credibility differently than our treats? You know, our treats, it's about being innovative and flexing those flavor muscles that we can put out there that others can't, right? Well, on the food side, it's delivering consistently. It's making sure that we're differentiating in a way that's different. So for us, we have two big food platforms, our chicken strip basket and our burgers, our stack burger line. And so for us, it's about making sure that we're creating that like crave, that reason to come to DQ. So for our chicken strips, it's like having that house-made Hidden Valley Ranch or that hot gravy that you can't get elsewhere, but you can get DQ. And it's quite honestly, we cut a broad swath. There's a lot of people who use DQ for our treats and our low frequency, that treat love into food love and doing that consistently over time.
Well, so I'm going to admit it. The hot dogs are my favorite. And the fact that the buns were always in the steamer are always game changer.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that fun? And it gets back to that nostalgia. I mean, that also is an interesting thing we play with is we want to be of today, but the nostalgia is so powerful too. And so
for sure.
How do you tap into that, but not appear old? And so,
so you have to stay fresh.
Yeah, that is a needle we have to think about threading all of the time, which is a blessing. I mean, to have a 80-plus-year-old brand and that people love is so great, but that is something that we have to be really mindful of.
Well, and I love what you said a few minutes ago that, you know, you get to try things. And I think because you have an 80-year-old brand that people love, they're loyal to, they trust, you know, they know that it's consistent, you do get to try things, right? Exactly. And some of them will be grand slams.
Yep.
And, and others might not be, but at the end of the day, they love you and they're going to keep coming back, which is pretty cool.
Well, and that's part of being in the food industry. One truth of us humans is that we want to try new foods and treats. I mean, it's inherent in what we do. And so that's part of what makes being here so fun is you do have the license and I might say the need to bring out that news to drive people in. So if you put out a limited time offer burger flavor, you know, you'll sell X many of those burger, but what you're doing is selling burgers. And so that's acting as that catalyst and that makes it fun because then you can have noteworthy flavors or you can have spicy flavors. Like we have the same
or the seasonal stuff.
Yes, exactly. Like heat seekers seek heat. So when we promote Flamethrower, we bring in a niche audience who are looking for that moment, right? And so you can find those kind of broad appealing flavors like on the treat side. You know, the fastballs down the middle are like chocolate and peanut butter, caramel, but you have those kind of those other flavors that fall in that unique but rare quadrant that have high purchase intent, high uniqueness. Those are ones like that. When we hit those, it's like s'mores, Blizzard. We worked on developing. That took 8 years for us to develop. Because we could not get it right. And we were not going to bring it out until it was right.
It's so good.
It is so good. And we kind of we'll have flavors and we'll put them in our freezer for a while and then we'll bring them back. And it's amazing to watch fans be like, where is s'mores? Where did s'mores go? And it's wonderful because our R&D team, I think we have one of the best R&D teams in the planet. They worked to get that right. There's another flavor like that Nestle Toll House cookie where people had the concept always performed incredibly high. But what people perceive as a Nestle Toll House cookie differs. And so hitting that exactly right was a challenge. And we did that and sold out like in a hot minute a couple years ago. So, cool. we have this, I mean, that's part of being a treat leader is we can't come out with a s'mores that doesn't deliver on s'mores, right? We owe it to our fans.
Well, especially also because people are so engaged and out there on social. I mean, you don't want to release something that's anything but the best.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. That's so cool. So I think we're probably coming up on time here. Is there anything that I feel like that MLB partnership is just such a huge win. Is there anything else exciting coming up over the next year? I know you guys have a lot of work around the loyalty.
Right. We are just so excited to start marketing in earnest our loyalty, like the rewards and mobile ordering. I think, as a busy parent, and we are very much a life stage brand. So we appeal to the younger, the kids, obviously.
Of course. Yeah.
And then we kind of see consumers kind of go away during college. They find other ways to treat. And then
I have no idea what that might be.
Right. And then as people start to have their own families, they come back into the brand. And so, for us, we really want to be there so we obviously skew higher with families with kids than your typical brand. And so what we want to do is make a seamless way for fans to experience DQ. So if you're with your kid and it's after the ball game and you want to go to the patio and have a moment and rehash the game with the team or just together, we want to be there for you. But if you are busy and on your way to practice and want to mobile order and not talk to anyone and just have it be a quick, seamless experience to get dinner, we want to be there for you then too. And so I think it's really building the brand to be that full expression of what consumers are looking for, that I'm just really excited. And you see how powerful these loyalty programs are. And we've seen that too, but to be able to talk about it and really ignite it with data, I think is going to really be incredibly powerful.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the fact that now those silos are all coming together and you guys really have the opportunity to learn and then make decisions based on what the data says. I mean, it gives you a ton of opportunity to do new things, try new things, reach new people. I love all the focus around content. I think that sometimes we forget that just having content is selling your brand, right? Yes. I mean, because it's that top of mind awareness. I have lots of ideas how we could do that in a text thread. So we're going to talk more later. This was so fun. Thank you, Maria. Yes. I'm so glad to have met you. I know that
me too. Thank you so much.
For sure. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you both. I'm now going to get a treat from DQ.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Maria and Katie.
Take care.
Bye. All right. Thank you both. And thank you, everyone. Now let's welcome Scott Gladstone, Senior Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at Dine Brands, and his moderator, Drew Brennan, Senior Client Partner at Nextdoor. Hi, Drew.
Hi, Selby. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks.
Great. Hi, Scott. I'll let you take
Hello. Morning.
Hey, Scott. How's it going?
It's good, Drew. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you again as well. I'm sorry. I'm going to quickly see if I can quickly turn on, I'm not even going to worry about it, turning on that background that I was trying to get on there. Great to connect again, Scott. Glad we had the chance to say hi last week. My first question I actually have for you, and I know we talked a little bit about the fact that we both have kids. How was your Halloween yesterday? Are your kids old enough that they want to continue to be with you, or do they want to be off on their own?
Oh yeah, well, my son is almost 4, so we did a nice tag team. He would knock on the door, and I would coach him from behind, saying, "Okay, remember to say trick or treat and thank you." So that was we got a good solid block in together, both sides of the street, and we had a fun time. He said it was a great Halloween, so that's all I could ask for.
Perfect. Well, I know with you being out in California, you typically have good weather. We're here in Chicago, I think I told you, and we've got 2 little ones, a first grader and a kindergartner, and it was nice to get out. And I'm at the point now where I don't have to walk them up to the door. I can kind of sit back on the sidewalk, let them get their candy at their neighbors' houses, and then make sure that they say hello. So in a good spot right now, and I'm sure it'll only hopefully continue to get better. Well, thanks once again, Scott. This is great to have you here. For those of you guys that don't know me, I know I got introduced earlier, but I'm Drew Brennan, Senior Client Partner here at Nextdoor. Scott is the SVP of Strategy and Innovation at Dine Brands. My first thing I wanted to get to, Scott, is tell us a bit about your journey. When you and I talked last week, we talked a little bit about how you got your career started as a trader out in New York City. Then you went to UCLA, got your MBA, followed by Boston Consulting Group. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to Dine Brands.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good synopsis of my stops. It's been a varied career so far. I guess most recently, after, I'll just kind of pick up from where you stopped. So I after business school, I joined Boston Consulting Group for about 5 years. Was a management consultant in their LA office. Was a generalist. It was a great experience to get exposure across industries and functional topic areas. So did everything from marketing strategy to growth strategy to organizational transformation. It just gives you a nice exposure to everything across the business. And I joined Dine Brands here in Glendale about 6.5 years ago. And Dine, for those that are not familiar, is the franchisor of Applebee's and IHOP restaurants. So yes, both brands are owned by one company, which is a little bit surprising. We're 100% franchised, which makes us a little bit unique in the space, publicly traded company. And I've had a couple of different roles while at Dine. I came in our development function. Development is physical stores and kind of managing the footprint for both Applebee's and IHOP, and transitioned into a role that was primarily for Applebee's. Spent about 5 years within the Applebee's organization, leading development, leading off-premise, which is to-go and delivery, and also leading business analytics and insights for the brand. And about 18 months ago, I took on a new role at the enterprise level, which is leading strategy across Dine. So in my role today, more focused at the Dine Brands level, corporate strategy for Dine. So as we think about our overall strat plan, how we deliver value to shareholders, is about half of my role. The other half is focused on identifying new technologies, new initiatives, new ways to drive revenue or kind of take out cost, especially restaurant level, on behalf of our brands. So partner very closely with the IHOP and Applebee's teams to test new initiatives, pilot new technologies, and try to see those come to fruition at the restaurant. So it's an exciting time in the restaurant business, very competitive space, and there's a lot happening, especially in this uncertain economy, and keeps us busy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't imagine every day. I would imagine is a little bit different, and with your start with Applebee's, and then obviously now being fully under Dine Brands and working with IHOP and Applebee's together, I'm sure everything is keeping you on your toes. When we talked a little bit about kind of strategy and innovation, I know you laid out to me 3 pillars of kind of the innovation, and we talked a little bit about, I believe it was virtual brands, automation, and capacity management seem to be kind of the 3 that fit under innovation. Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe each one of those individually? So why don't we start with virtual brands and tell us a little bit more about what that means to IHOP and Applebee's?
Yeah, so virtual brands are brands that live solely on the third-party marketplaces like Uber Eats and DoorDash. And although that's evolving a little bit, some of them are now taking on a physical presence as well. A good example of that would be something like Mr. Beast Burger. For those that might be familiar with Mr. Beast, who's a huge YouTube influencer, celebrity, 50 million YouTube subscribers. He has his own burger brand that he created, which is distributed outside of our system, but they opened a physical brick and mortar maybe 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago at this point, and it was the biggest restaurant opening of all time because that guy is able to really activate his audience, and that brand is very indicative of what a lot of folks are trying to accomplish with virtual brands. So we are trying to leverage the excess capacity we have in our kitchens. We've got a physical infrastructure, we've got fixed assets. We have this kitchen line and employees and food SKUs that are already in the kitchens. How do you then reimagine those items and create brands that can reach a new target audience, right? That maybe you can't reach with your core brand for a number of different reasons. So for IHOP, it's a great example. We have a lot of capacity after noon, 2 p.m. on most days, right? As if you think about IHOP, it's mostly considered as a breakfast destination, although we are open, into the later hours and our 24 hours in a good chunk of our locations. So this is a way for us to drive more volume and a way for us to be in the consideration set for meal occasions that a consumer may not think of us for. We've got great burgers, we've got great grilled cheeses, we've got great variety of items that we do on the griddle, and we think of ourselves as griddle masters, right? We can do anything on the griddle, not just pancakes. And so we just need to be in that consideration set, and that may require merchandising and positioning ourselves in a different way. And so that's what we're pursuing with virtual brands, and there's a endless number of opportunities that we are assessing. We have 2 brands for IHOP that are currently in market with a partner called Nextbite, who has created a couple brands for us. One is called Thrilled Cheese, which is grilled cheese concept. One is called Super Megadilla, which is a quesadilla concept. So both not tied to IHOP, but both leverage a lot of the existing infrastructure. So a great opportunity for us, great opportunity for the family casual dining industries to explore. We're in the early innings of it. Still a lot to learn, but it's a fun part of the business because it's about launching a new brand, right? And this is not something we get to do every day. And so we get to build some new muscles and see how consumers react to it.
That's really neat. Yeah, the Mr. Beast, I don't know if you saw the news on him last week. I don't know if you saw that he's looking to raise some money. I think he wants to become the first $1 billion, I believe, YouTube star. Certainly interesting on his side, the following he's created. So it's neat as well that you guys have really kind of latched onto him and become a partner with him, which is really cool. Talk to us a little bit about, so I mentioned virtual brands, automation, capacity management. So automation, I think you and I, we joked a little bit about, are we going to be seeing robots serving us food in the next, 5-10 years? Talk to us a little bit more about what automation means for Dine Brands. And then if there's anything you can share as well as it relates to what are some of the things that you guys have implemented from an automation standpoint at either IHOP or at Applebee's?
Yeah, so at the highest level, there's a lot of macroeconomic pressures on not just the restaurant industry, but on most, retail facing businesses, as it relates to inflation and as it relates to scarcity of labor, right? And those have been very well publicized over the last couple of years. And so when we think about automation, it's not really about replacing your labor force. It's about supplementing your labor force to kind of get to full efficiency effectively, because as we've said publicly, we're still not quite at the staffing levels that we were pre-COVID, and a lot of the labor force has exited the restaurant industry, at least on a temporary basis, but it's likely kind of a structural change that most will have to deal with. So there's a lot of restaurant concepts that are currently piloting with both front of house and back of house technologies that make your labor, your employees more productive. And it's not about replacing it. It's about taking kind of quote lower value added tasks, repeatable tasks, and automating those so that you free up your team to be more customer facing, right, and dealing with your customers. So we're assessing a number of technologies that are out there. I think one that we've stated publicly and that we do have out there is kind of a front of house server robot, basically, that's in an IHOP up in Northern California. And consumers love it because it's kind of a novelty, I think, for them at this point, when you see a robot come out with your food kind of on a tray on top of it. But the servers love it as well, because it's again, it's about supporting them. They're not making runs back and forth with a heavy tray with, 6 plates on it. It's helping them save some time, right? And then spend more time on consumer facing activities. So that's an early test, but we have to think of it holistically. All of these things have to have a payback. There's a lot of buzz around this tech, but ultimately, the proof will be whether it adds some consumer benefit to it, or if it has a economic savings. And so we're looking at a lot of things, and it certainly, I think in the next 5 to 10 years will be more prominent as you look across the restaurant landscape.
Completely agree. And you brought up COVID there, and you brought up some interesting aspects as it relates to having workers in locations and making sure that you're fully staffed. And I know you talked a little bit about when we talked about virtual brands, DoorDash and Uber Eats. How did COVID kind of accelerate your plans as it related to, let's look specifically at a partnership with a DoorDash, a partnership with an Uber Eats, along with pickup in store? Did COVID accelerate everything, or were you guys already on that path around those types of models?
Well, I mean, both. We were fortunate to have the infrastructure in place, so we had already been doing third-party delivery. We, for Applebee's, for example, we've done carside to go, carside pickup for 20 years. We're one of the first in the space to do that. So we had the foundations, and as a large scaled brand, company with 2 very large brands, we kind of have some of the technology infrastructure in place to adapt relatively quickly. So we already had, websites, apps, features, and functionality that could accommodate the off-premise business. Because what really happened was it did, to your point, accelerate the change. Probably 5 years. We went from rough numbers, businesses that were about 10% off-premise to 100% overnight, because our dining rooms are closed. Now that then modulated back. We're currently around we range in the 25% range about for both brands of off-premise. That's still a significant difference, over 2 times the sales volumes, and that has sustained itself. So the business mix looks very different and requires you to reallocate investments between those channels, requires you to be deeper in digital and in digital marketing, digital innovation, et cetera. And things that we're already doing, but it's just the focus and the investment levels are probably different than they were a couple of years ago.
Makes a ton of sense. And then kind of one of the other things we talked a little bit about as it relates to almost future looking when you think about strategy and innovation. Talk to us a bit about how you guys, Dine Brands or Applebee's and IHOPs, think about either NFTs or cryptocurrency, and how you guys make sure that you're prepared for possibly a time where people are paying not using monetary currency at your store locations.
Yeah, it's something that we've put on the board, in addition to a couple of other kind of emerging, we call them technologies that are out there that we're interested in. I think the use case is still evolving as we go, but both brands have kind of I think there's sincerity to it, but somewhat tongue in cheek have played in the NFT space. So last year, I think this was actually back in January, Applebee's did a weekly NFT drop, which was kind of related to some product lines that they were promoting, right? And so thinking of it as an extension of your marketing activities. IHOP just recently launched their new fluffy French toast, which then was playing into NFTs, but just really the acronym. So it's something that we're aware of. We think there's certainly a role in the future as it relates to ordering, and I think that's we're starting to see some brands play in the metaverse, right, and allow users to order within those channels. It's really just a different channel. You're immersed within some virtual reality console effectively, and allows you to order within that the same way you would order on your phone. So I think that's going to be a use case that we'll explore down the road. As it relates to payment, there are ways to do it today. We haven't prioritized it from a investment perspective to get that functionality in place, just because a lot of users don't use crypto today to actually transact. It's really kind of used more as a long-term investment vehicle, it seems, for some. So, but we'll see. We'll be ready to move on that once adoption gets to a certain level.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's one of those things that I still sometimes when I either read articles around it, especially NFTs, trying to wrap my mind around it. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I not understanding this? But then I take
No,
it
you
back.
don't get it. No, we've aged out. I think we both aged out of this one. We're not old, but it's too late for us.
I think that's very true. I do actually, I do own one NFT, but I don't even think I know how to access it though. I bought it. It was a very small amount of money. I bought it. I don't think I could even show it to you. I don't even know where it is. So that tells you probably about as much as I need to know about NFTs. So let's take a look at kind of your broader role, Scott, as it relates to strategy and innovation. And, this whole session is really kind of all about C-suite and marketing leadership. How does your role across strategy and innovation over there at Dine Brands, how do you interact with the other C-suite members? So whether it's C-suite across finance, operations, marketing, obviously I would imagine a lot of what you're handling and what you're looking at, you're going to be, engaging with other members on the C-suite. So tell us a little bit about what you do within your role, how that gives you access to, and how that allows you to work together with the other C-suite members at Dine Brands.
Yeah, I mean, we're a shared services organization, so we've got shared finance, legal, IT, HR, et cetera, shared strategy. So I am a shared service, and then we've got dedicated brand teams. And within those brand teams, you have marketing and operations and insights and a few other functions like that. And so each Applebee's and IHOP has their own brand teams that are dedicated. And so as a support function, you rely on influencing and being collaborative and trying to bring other stakeholders along in the journey. So I could have a great idea about wanting to do crypto, but if the brands don't see a reason to do that, then it's not going to go anywhere, right? I don't technically kind of own the P&L in that way, and in a way that maybe I used to when I was within the brand. So I think having had the brand exposure and experience, I think helps in this role. A lot of it's just relationship driven, but it also it requires you to get pretty buttoned up on building business cases and being clear as to what the reasons for wanting to do certain things are. So virtual brands, right? Virtual brands sound very cool, but if there's not a business case behind it, then the brands and our franchisees aren't going to be willing to test and then be willing to adopt them at scale. So, from a strategy perspective, we're looking to identify opportunities that we think can scale across 1,600 restaurants or so for each brand, right? We've got a domestic fleet of 3,200 restaurants between the two. So it requires us to think a little bit differently, try to get away from the shiny object type thing that might be cool but doesn't really go very far. We're trying to find, again, these opportunities that are going to get to market in a broad application. So as it relates to the interaction at the C-suite, it's about building buy-in. It's about telling the story. It's about open, consistent dialogue and communication, and having a seat at the table. I mean, ultimately, I'm part of the executive team and report to the CEO as well as my peers. So, we put an emphasis on this, I guess, on this function being influential within the company, and ultimately rely on partnership with our other stakeholders to get things across the line.
Great. Yeah, and I think the other aspect of that is kind of thinking about the word leadership. And I didn't put this in one of our questions that you and I were going to chat about, so I'm hoping I'm not throwing you off on this. But what do you think are some great qualities of leaders, either that you've worked with or that you've seen kind of throughout your experience and throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I've seen a variety of them, as I'm sure most folks on this webinar have, and you kind of reflect back on who are the bosses you like to work for and who are the bosses you didn't. But I guess two things that kind of, just to react quickly to it, that jump out. One is listening. So the leaders that I respect the most are great listeners, and they take feedback from people within the organization, right? And they certainly have a perspective and a point of view and drive the ship in the direction it needs to go, but they also are willing to adapt and kind of adjust the approach based on what they're seeing in the market. So that's one. The second is accountability, and it's fostering a culture of accountability within the organization so that decisions don't get bottlenecked within the highest level. And so I've seen it kind of both ways in my experiences here and in other places. Small decisions kind of needing CEO or brand president approval in order to get done, when really they can be decided at a much lower level in the organization. And so I think the best leaders are able to empower their people to make the right sets of decisions, allow their people to understand what types of decisions need to be escalated to the top. And the deeper down you can push accountability with the organization, the more nimble you're going to be in terms of speed to market effectively. And so I'd say those are probably the two things that I've seen be most effective from leaders that I've come across.
Great. Yeah, I think the listening, you bring up listening, it's one of the things that you always hear about, me being in sales. It's one of the things that they say about a great salesperson is someone that actually listens. If you go into a meeting and a salesperson is talking most of the time, it's usually not what you're going to want from an outcome perspective. You want that salesperson to be listening, and you want them to really kind of obviously understand and get an idea and a feel for what's taking place. And so, a good salesperson is a good listener. I think my wife would also as well probably agree that I need to become a little bit better listener too.
Well, from a sales perspective, yeah, it is critical, because there's almost every solution I've come across has had to be customized to our needs, right? Even though the solution may be broadly applicable to every brand. Once you talk to your customers, you find that there's nuances that need to be adjusted, because they have a tech stack that's different, because they've got certain customer needs that are unique. And so, yeah, I mean, that's critical from a sales leadership perspective. It's understanding, okay, what does my customer really need from this? Otherwise, they're not going to either sign up or renew down the road. So it's an important
exactly thing. Yeah, and I think that brings us right to get kind of your brands and how you guys listen to your customers, right? You being involved with strategy and innovation, you're always probably trying to think of what's next and where can your brands continue to go. So how do you guys balance listening to your customers? And obviously you have a very loyal following across both your brands, right? A brand like IHOP's been around for over 60 years. How do you guys listen to what they say and what they expect from their dining experience versus balancing, okay, we know what you guys expect and we know what you're going to be looking for when you come to our brands, but we have to continue to innovate, right? We have to continue to grow our brands and how our brands are going to be out in market. How do you kind of balance that, the listening to your customers, but then also continuing to innovate as you guys move forward?
Well, there's different levels and layers of feedback, I guess, and layers of innovation. So, as it relates to products, the product innovation, menu innovation, a lot of that sits within the brands. And so, we've got, regular consistent ways that we capture feedback from our customers, across our different channels, dine-in or off-premise, largely survey-based, in which they're telling us, what they think. We also have a guest relations hotline in which customers are calling in and telling us, issues that they're experiencing. And then the brands are adapting in certain ways. If you think from a product perspective and innovation, I mean, a lot of it is knowing who your core is and who your core customer is, but then kind of giving them additional reasons to come and trial new things. So we don't want to get away from the core, but we also want to innovate from a menu perspective that might drive incremental visits, incremental traffic. I think a good example of that is what Applebee's has in market right now is a burger campaign. It's actually get 5 boneless wings for $1 when you order a burger, but it's featuring 2 new burgers. And one of those burgers is the Bourbon Street, is a Bourbon Street burger. So Bourbon Street's a platform that we've had on Applebee's probably for 15 years, Bourbon Street chicken, Bourbon Street steak. It comes out on a skillet, but the innovation is now kind of taking those flavor profiles in that platform and applying it to the burger category. So that's where you see some new innovation from a menu perspective, kind of listening to our customers who tell us we love Bourbon Street. We probably want more of that type of thing, kind of give it to me, and we're adapting to it. So that's kind of from a product perspective. And from a technology perspective, there's also other opportunities that we're hearing from our customers, or we're seeing in the data that tells us, hey, we need to find ways to improve our operations. So, for example, in off-premise, one of the most important factors to a great off-premise experience or a to-go experience is speed of service. So how quickly can I get in and out of the parking lot, basically? And what we saw in the data is that we had opportunities to be faster, right? And we want to be in the consideration set for both brands with a QSR experience. And so the threshold, the hurdle for a QSR experience is somewhere in that 3 to 4 minute range. If you look at kind of benchmark data, if you think about your own experience, you drive into the drive-through, you order at the box, you sit and wait, then you pay, and then you get your food. It's usually in that 3 to 4 minutes. If we can meet that same experience using digital, you can call in, use our call center that comes in Digital ES. You can use the website or app. Takes a minute, if you save your profile, etc. And you can be in and out of our parking lot within 1 to 2 minutes, then it's really kind of that same overall, 3 to 4 minute experience. And so we brought in a new technology partner about 18 months ago called Flybuy. They give us geotechnology location that's baked into our app, into our web flows that tell us when a customer and when a delivery driver is arriving. And so that's allowed us, one, to measure how long drivers and customers are waiting in our parking lot. So now we can manage that, right? We didn't know before, okay, you're waiting for 5 minutes, you're waiting for 7 minutes. What we saw was a lot of variability. So it gave us one, that, and two, it allows us to now respond quickly and get out to the car faster. And so that's been a huge benefit. Again, we saw it from the data, we heard it from our customers. They want us to be faster. Okay, let's deploy a solution that meets that. I think the other layer, just to comment on based on the question, is that, from a Dine Brands perspective or from Applebee's IHOP, we've got two sets of customers. We have our end customers who are users, but we also have franchisees, right? We're a franchisor. Our main customer is our franchisee. Our franchisee is the one operating the restaurant and the one who's the kind of the main point of contact for the customer, so the end customer. So we have to meet our franchisees' needs, and a lot of their needs, especially in this inflationary environment, is around profitability, right, and unit level economics. And so going all the way back full circle to kind of where we're focusing on things like automation and capacity management is to meet our franchisees' needs and their desire to kind of drive as much volume and to be as efficient as possible with their restaurants. So kind of a long-winded answer, but we're consistently listening to both sets of customers in order to deliver solutions to them.
Yeah, I think you bringing up the franchisees again, I think that's kind of an interesting segue. And I was listening to the call prior to ours where they had the CMO from Dairy Queen on, and I didn't realize this as well, but Dairy Queen is pretty much same thing. It's about 100% franchisee model. So kind of when you think about that, and like you said, they are your customer, right? They're your initial customer, and then the end user is your customer as well. How does it, when I think about Dine Brands, or when I think about Applebee's and I think about IHOP, how does having that franchise model, how does that kind of change, or how does that obviously influence at the end of the day, kind of the C-suite leadership? So how you guys make decisions, because like you said, you have a customer right there that you guys have to serve. So how does the franchisee model influence your overall decision-making as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's an additional stakeholder that you need to bring along in the journey. And so great franchisors have great relationships with their franchisees because they realize that the whole engine only works if the franchisees are kind of bought into the strategy, and ultimately if they're, in a profitable situation, and it's not just, okay, franchisor, I make money off of a percentage of sales, but the franchisee is not making profit, right? So there's some competing interests there, but great franchisors kind of acknowledge that and kind of balance those priorities between the two groups to find common solutions. So, what we do with both brands, I'd say, is, I think we do a very effective job of collaborating with, communicating with, and partnering with our franchisees. We do that via, it's a little bit different across the brands, but kind of structured sets of councils that are meeting on a regular basis, and they're talking through business strategy. They are aligned functionally at different levels. So, for example, we've got a technology council and an operations council and a marketing council, and then an overarching business council, and they're talking about different issues and initiatives that might be coming up, and we're getting their feedback, and then we're floating off of them. Oh, what do you think about running this type of promotion? Or how about, this new type of technology that's going to have an associated cost to it for you? Like, what I think ultimately what it does is one, it brings you closer to your customer, which is good. And being as close to the customer is a good thing, right? Because you understand what their needs are. It also makes us better, I think, from a business perspective in being buttoned up and polished and thoughtful about what we're proposing before we propose it. And what one of my former bosses would say is, don't lead with your chin, right? So don't go in there and say, hey, we want to run this big discount promotion without all of the backup and detail and understanding of, okay, what are the economics of that for the franchisee, right? And so that's where we have to spend a little bit more time on the front end for sure in order to be thoughtful about what it is we want to test or pilot or roll out at scale. But I think that makes us better over the long term, because then at least we've done that work up front. There's hopefully less surprises down the road. There's always things that come up and always things that are unanticipated, but at least we can say, with confidence, okay, we've put the business case together. We've got the buy-in of our franchisees. We've shared at least everything that we know on the at the outset, and then we kind of hold hands and see what the outcome looks like. So ultimately I think it just makes you better and helps you in the long run. That said, there's benefits to also being 100% company owned, and probably can move a little bit faster sometimes at some parts of the funnel, but it's it's part of the gig. So
exactly. Well, and I love what you said about being thoughtful. I think a lot of people can learn a lot from being thoughtful just at the outset. I think you can learn a lot about yourself, but you can also learn a lot about how to interact and how to work with other people. So I completely agree with that. Let's talk a little bit about your rewards program. So I know IHOP has their International Bacon Pancakes and Applebee's has Club Applebee's. How have you seen your rewards programs grow over the years? And then how do you guys utilize a lot of the data that you guys are going to be receiving from your rewards programs? How does that data help you guys continue to grow?
Yeah, so to clarify, Applebee's program is an e-club. And so effectively it's, you share your email address and you're given, a sign-up reward as well as, a birthday incentive. And so it's relatively, and then, obviously we'll use your email then to communicate, various offers over the course of the year. The IHOP program is really more of a traditional earn and burn program where you are accruing points based on your visits, and then you can redeem those points for a variety of different offers. It's going to be free food items. We also have what we call the stack market, where you can trade your pan coins in for different experiences. As an example is a recent partnership we did with Xbox, where you were able to trade in your pan coins for points, Xbox points, basically, that could be redeemed on their platform. So what's really exciting about that is that you're kind of really building a real digital currency that can then be, redeemed for other experiences outside of the IHOP ecosystem. So it makes a pretty interesting kind of long-term, rewards program, incentive program that makes us attractive, I think, to other companies and probably opens up some partnerships that we didn't have before. But yeah, we're using the data. I mean, the IHOP program is relatively new. It launched back, I believe, in April. We feel very good about where we are at from a signups perspective, and from an active users perspective. Certainly, we're listening and learning and incorporating those as we go forward. But yeah, that data can be used then to tailor incentives and awards, and we've done certain things over the last couple of months with multiplier programs to certain sets of targets, and trying to really now induce behavior based on what they're actually doing. So, the beauty of the reward program is probably most people that do rewards know is that you have a much deeper insight as to consumer behavior and what incents them to actually come for an incremental visit. And that's what we're trying to do is get you to come more often. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's a pretty creative program that the IHOP team has created, and we're excited about it.
Great. Yeah, I think we've all been able to see what different brands have been able to accomplish through their rewards programs, and like you said, the ability to incentivize and make someone go to a location more than they're regularly going is obviously a huge aspect of that. We've got about 5 minutes left here, so I wanted to kind of just touch upon obviously where we're at now, at least from obviously kind of the economy, inflationary aspects that we're all dealing with right now, and you've been in the the casual dining space now for about 6 years. So tell us a little bit about, kind of what are some trends that you think are going to start to emerge here as we move into 2023, or what have been some of the neat trends you've seen over the last 6 years as it relates to kind of just the casual dining space as a whole, and like I said, what should we be on the lookout for as we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about before, I think this big shift into digital and off premise remains the biggest trend probably, and so there will be continue to be innovation along that avenue, right? And how do we further evolve our digital platforms? I think you're going to see some slowdown, right, in kind of function. I think the big step change kind of happened right 2 years ago, and I think a lot of concepts added on a lot of new technology, and now we're going to try to enhance that and optimize it, right, versus kind of adding on a bunch of new bells and whistles. I do think you'll start to see more of a migration of this digital technology into the four walls of the restaurants, and that will become a bit more pronounced. You saw it, most consumers saw it with the introduction of QR menus, right, during COVID. I think there's broadly been a rejection of that technology, although it was useful at that time, but now I think if you go to most restaurants, you'll see they still have the QR menus, but most people are opting in for the physical menu just because it's a better experience. That said, you're going to see the introduction of digital payments, right, on your own devices, and how do you use your own iPhone or Android device to engage with the restaurant in the four walls. So today for both brands, you have the ability to pay your check, on your phone via a QR code effectively that's on the table or on the check. And that's a great experience, right? If you want to get in and out quickly and use your safe payment that you have on your iPhone, you can do that and not wait for the server to come back and run your bill. So I think you'll see similar types of technologies across the customer journey kind of integrate themselves in the restaurant, whether that's, okay, I want to reorder a beverage, or I want to order potentially a full meal, or I need to call my server or do something and engage with the restaurant via my device. I'm going to do that as long as it doesn't really distract from the core meaning of why you came to the sit-down restaurant in the beginning. I think why the QR code has kind of been rejected is because everybody just, rather than engaging with one another and maybe being collaborative, everyone's just looking at their own phone, and it gets a little awkward. So, but you will see digital integrate itself a lot deeper in the coming years. I also think pricing will be an interesting one. I think there's some folks who are looking at dynamic pricing, not necessarily for inside the restaurant, but on digital platforms, especially in this high menu inflation environment. How do you get a little bit more dynamic and charge based on different consumer behaviors for the restaurant industry? That's something you've seen in hotels and in airlines for years and years and years, because consumers are familiar with it. But I think you'll see some of that start to emerge in the next year or two.
Nice. Yeah, I laughed at when you said the QR codes and looking on your phone. I feel like whenever I go into a restaurant and I'm looking at, if I'm looking at the menu on my phone or my wife is looking at it, we're not paying any attention to our kids. I think people are looking over at us and thinking we're the worst parents on the planet, but we're just trying to figure out what to order. But I agree, I do miss the physical menu, and that is a nice aspect. That to me is like, you're out dining, right? Is when you have a menu in your hands, you're out, there's an experience, you're actually enjoying yourself. So I completely agree with that. But the other thing I'll say too is, like you said, you have to continue to build within your own four walls, because you have those locations, right? And those locations are not going away. At least you don't want them to go away, right? So you have to continue to evolve the experience of your diners when they're actually inside your locations, and then when they're heading in. So
it's not one size fits all. I mean, from a generational perspective, or just whatever your preference is, we're all going to want to engage with our own devices in a different way. Sometimes you want to talk to a server, sometimes you won't, and it just depends on the person. So you just have to create those different flows basically within the restaurant, so you can accommodate as many people as possible.
Agree. Well, thanks, Scott. I really appreciate you taking the time today. This was great to connect this way, and I look forward to us continuing to be in touch. So thanks again.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Great conversation. Thank you guys so much, and have a great day.
Thanks, Salvi. Bye, everyone.
All right, everyone. Well, that's the end of the day. Thank you, everyone, for joining and tuning in. Big shout out to our speakers, our sponsors, and our audience. That's you. Be sure to check out the Brand Innovators website to learn more about our next event and many others to come. Have a great day.